For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel, we welcome you to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on location at number 2 Donald Street, the Farmery Brewing retail location. As you can see, it's Ezzy's dream come true. We are surrounded here this morning by beer. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep him sober for the next couple of hours.
It's a beautiful thing to be surrounded by this much beer, boys, this early in the morning. Fantastic.
You haven't had this much beer near you at 9 a.m. since you were probably, about 15, 16 years old, something like that, waking up from a bit of a rager, as the kids say. I don't know if the kids say that. I have no clue what the kids say, to be honest.
15 or 16 is a little bit young.
Maybe,
I was giving you, like,
I don't know what you were doing on the mean streets of Tuxedo there, Mindell.
Drew, like, at least give me like 18 or 19, 15 or 16, like I'm a teenage alcoholic. Like, what's going on here?
As the shoe fits.
As our boy Bruce says, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
Isn't that a great philosophy? So that's why we're here live at Farmery Brewing, number 2 Donald Street. Come on down. You can watch us do this program. You can pick up some beers of your own. They have both alcoholic and non-alcoholic options, of course.
And the wall of IC beer.
The wall of IC beer behind Dave there. Hopefully that won't tumble down onto him and crush him at any point.
As my Uncle Benny would have said, what a way to go.
What a way to go indeed. Anyways, good evening, good morning to everyone. We're thrilled to be here at number 2 Donald Street Farmery Brewing for this morning's edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Couple minutes delayed, but all praise, of course, to producer Tim, who gets us on the air, because if the three of us had to do this on our own, we would be in way more trouble. Tim makes us sound good. Tim makes us look good. So we're thrilled to be here as usual, gentlemen, talking about the Winnipeg Jets. I got to say, guys, before we get into the Jets, we got 2 hours of Jets talk coming your way. It is a sneaky great day in sports. There are not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 college football bowl games, 3 NFL games. You have, of course, the main event of the Jets and the Avalanche later on tonight. And, of course, the IC post-game show right around 12 hours from now, give or take, at 9 o'clock tonight.
And then it's all capped off with Saturday Night Live at 10:30.
I think there's more football games even happening. Kentucky and North Carolina, battle of blue bloods playing college basketball.
Oh, Dave and I will be watching every second
I know you
game.
would be.
We love our Kentucky football,
I know.
right?
It's basketball.
Sorry, basketball.
It's basketball, dork. Listen to what I say.
No, you were talking about college football. So.
Yeah, no, college football it's the start of bowl season. It's a great day if you have no responsibilities to kick your feet up and just watch, and maybe drink a few of the Farmery beer.
Drew. Nicely done there.
Thank you. Anyways, just wanted to mention how great of a sports day it is on this Saturday morning. But we're here to talk, of course, about the Winnipeg Jets. And this has really been a newsworthy week for the Winnipeg Jets. A lot of good on the ice. Little bit of bad, or more than a little bit of bad off the ice as it pertains to the Kyle Connor injury earlier this week when he gets injured last Sunday against the Anaheim Ducks. But, by and large, I think the Jets showed a lot this week in a lot of their victories. The come from behind win in Anaheim, the victory against the LA Kings, another come from behind win. So this Jets team, I mean, we've talked about it on the post-game show, but they're showing a lot of fight and they're showing a lot of edge. And I want to get to also Gabe Vilardi's comments post-game on Thursday night, because those sort of came out after the post-game show ended.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't really have an opportunity to address them on Thursday. But he really played with a chip on his shoulder and wasn't shying away from that post game with some of his remarks about how the LA Kings, just didn't want him anymore. That's
verbatim.
That's verbatim. He said, they didn't want me anymore. So I came here and I said, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, he certainly did with that effort on Thursday night. But I like that the Jets have a bit of a swagger to them right now, deservingly so, given how they've played so far this year.
Yeah, you mentioned swagger last post-game show, and then Dave made the joke that that shouldn't be confused with sauntering, because we know that Drew loves to saunter
Big saunter.
around Crescentwood and other areas around Winnipeg,
I
right?
would argue I'm more of a stroller than a saunterer, but I can hear what you say.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, you like to stroll as well.
Yeah.
But look, you mentioned the Jets-Kings game, and if you want to start with the Jets-Avalanche game, right? We obviously did the post-game show live from Boston Pizza. Producer Timmy was there. We had a lot of IC Nation there as well. And I think, Sean Reynolds made a good point on last Saturday morning show. Really, if it wasn't for Nathan McKinnon basically willing the Avalanche back into that game, I mean, the Jets could have won that game by 3 or 4 goals, right?
Mhm.
So that Jets win over the Avalanche was really impressive to start the road trip off, Dave.
Yeah.
But I think, for me at least, the most impressive win is the win against the Kings. And it's not just because it's the second game of a back-to-back.
Mhm.
I think it's because they got down 2-0 in a bit of a weird way, right? Like, Nate Schmidt's penalty was a weak penalty. And then obviously Laferriere got the, fluky goal off of Connor Hellebuck's mask, right? So I just liked how, they didn't let that 2-0 lead demoralize them. And yeah, it is a second game of a back-to-back, and that loss against the Sharks was a bit of a stinker. So that win over the Kings was really impressive. And obviously, the revenge element meant a lot more to Gabe Vilardi than it meant to Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? Because Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think he got an assist on the first goal, but or the second goal, but
Second, yeah.
He looked pretty bad out there at certain points. Just didn't look interested in the game. So Gabe Vilardi was fantastic against the Kings, and that entire line was, Dave. They had 11 or 12 points. So Ehlers deserves a lot of credit for his 2 goals, and Scheifele maybe his best all-around game of the season. He really took over, as did that whole line in the second period.
Well, and it's interesting because those were the comments yesterday from Jets captain Adam Lowry, who said that was the best game he's ever seen Mark Scheifele play on both ends of the with the puck. Like he said, defensively he was really good, and we saw it, and offensively, obviously, he was very good. So look, you needed that top line to do what they did, which is take over the game. And you're right. They came back from 2-0 deficits on this road trip. The Anaheim one, not as impressive as the LA one because of the opponent, but the LA one, again, you can call it what you will, but that's the second game of a back-to-back, as just said, and that's a tough game, and they're a really good team. And the Jets just made them look a little silly, right? Especially, like I said, that top line. And
yeah,
we're going to see look, guys want to do well for Gabe Vilardi. They know that's his first game back in LA. They know, and Alex Iafallo, can't leave him out either.
Right.
But the fact is that the team wants to win it for those guys. They want to come there and say, this is what you're missing out on. And they don't want to be embarrassed. There's a lot of pride there. So I'm not surprised that they were able to do what they did on Wednesday. It was a really good effort, and it was an important win. It was a real, again, you could have come back and been like, okay, well, we're 2-2. We had a good, solid road trip, tough situation, but to come back 3-1 and have that sort of, as you said, Drew, swagger to their thing, it's interesting because they weren't overly enthusiastic yesterday after practice. They weren't treating it like they were Stanley Cup champions, which is what you want to see.
Right.
You had an impressive victory, but like Rick Bowness would often say, move forward,
flush it and move on.
That's right. You're not, it's great. You added the points to the standings bank, which we always talk about.
Right.
You're put yourself in a position that obviously tonight could be a battle for first place, with Dallas right now 1 point ahead of you, and obviously Colorado 2 points, but they've had one game the Jets have one game in hand on them. So it's setting itself up to be a really good situation and a real good game, and it's a solid road trip. Homestand now with 4 games here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, there was a lot of chatter going on, I think, on that ice on Wednesday night between the Jets and the Kings, because reading some of the post game comments, Blake Lizotte was asked about Gabe Vilardi's comments, and Blake Lizotte, of course, denied that he will.
But he was asked about, just to be
during
clear,
during the morning skate.
But but he was asked about the comments that Gabe Vilardi had made.
Yes,
2 weeks ago,
accusing him of being a dirty player.
But just to be clear,
right, exactly. But there was, Matt Roy was asked about after the game. He was asked about some of the on ice jawing, and it sounds like there's no love loss between a lot of these guys. And I know that they were all teammates for a while, but it sounds like that quickly came to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no, I don't think these guys got together for any post game beverages or anything along those lines. I don't know if you guys saw that interview with Eric Johnson, who now of the Buffalo Sabres, when he went back to Denver to play the Avalanche for the first time. And he was talking about how he got together with some of the guys and they had dinner the night before, and there was still very much a camaraderie there. I don't get the sense there was any camaraderie whatsoever between the former Kings players and then the current Kings players.
No, Gabe Vilardi and Blake Lizotte, I don't think, went for a nice steak dinner in Hollywood after the game.
As a nice steak birthday dinner, because it was Blake Lizotte's birthday on Wednesday.
Well, there you go.
No, and that was really, I mean, an all-time impressive performance by Gabe Vilardi, right? His first ever 4-point night. And, you know, you have to go back to when he was drafted and, you know, the injuries he had at the beginning of his career, right?
Right.
And there were other centers in front of him in the lineup, notably Anze Kopitar, Philip Deneau, Quinton Byfield, who's having his breakout year this year, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, Gabe Vilardi wanted to not only prove to the Kings that they made a mistake by trading him,
Yeah.
he wanted to prove it to himself, right? Like
Yeah.
he had the injury, missed a bunch of time at the beginning of the season with that knee injury, which is kind of weird that, you know, as soon as he comes back, Kyle Connor goes out with a very similar knee injury because we think it's a sprain, right? And that's
Yeah.
what Vilardi had, a
Yeah.
sprain, right? So nice to see Colby here. Colby, good morning. So
That's
yeah, I mean,
illegal curve photographer Colby Spence. That's who
Sorry.
Colby is. You
Sorry,
got
I
to
actually-
make sure the audience
I was
knows who
gonna
Colby
actually-
is.
The audience
Colby, I was
does know, they
actually
just
gonna
saw
say-
it.
I was going to say Sir Colby Spence, like Ben Kingsley, but I wasn't sure if that was
Lord
too much.
Is what he's going
Lord,
with now.
there you go.
There he
go.
is.
There's Colby waving to the cameras. He's here to snap a few photos of us live on location.
Didn't even know he was coming.
Number two Donald Street Farmery Brewing retail location.
Dave,
here.
sometimes I just wake up in the morning and I'm brushing my teeth and about to go in the shower, and there's Colby. He's like, "Oh, I just thought you wanted some shots of you showering." So,
Nobody wants those shots. Your wife doesn't want those shots. I can assure you that absolutely nobody is interested in those shots whatsoever. But you know, so going back to sort of where the Jets were at this week, and now of course they had the great performance. Against the Kings, they had the great comeback against the Ducks, less so against the Sharks. Sort of a disappointing night there, but now you got to refocus again. You got the Colorado Avalanche tonight,
Yeah.
and this should be a better Avalanche team than we saw last Thursday or 10 days ago on Thursday. I
Mhm.
think they're closer. You know, Cale Makar had just come back to the lineup on
Yeah.
that Thursday, so he wasn't at full strength. So he's had a few games where I think he's probably getting, back up to speed. And we know that when Cale Makar is at, full force, how dominant of a presence he is. I don't even need to mention how dominant Nathan McKinnon is. So this is going to be a big test, I think, again tonight for the Jets, because that the Avalanche read the headlines after the game, a week ago Thursday, where the Jets are saying, that we're now an elite team, or maybe not the Jets so much, but the commentators are saying that
I'm not so sure the Jets were saying we're in a
no,
league team.
not the Jets, but the comments, the post-game narrative was that this was an important win for the Jets, that this is a win that puts the Jets at another level. The Avalanche heard those. There's no question about it that the Avalanche would have heard those, and now we're going to probably be using that to maybe try and say to little brother, hey, not so fast. I'm going to try and kick some mud in your face still. I can still get away with doing that.
Drew, how many times have you said,
I'm an only child. I don't know. Is that what brothers do? I have no idea.
I don't know. I only have a sister. I don't have a brother. I
been-
consider you guys brothers. I consider Colby and Tim my brother, and everybody out there. So yeah, I like to just consider everybody part of my family.
That's
I'm a lovable guy. So
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Drew, how many times have you mentioned how hockey players have short memories, right? The Avalanche just were defeated by the Jets less than 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, 10 days.
So I mean, I don't care what you say. It's not bulletin board material or anything like that. It's just like these teams know that they're going to be battling with Dallas. Like, it's top heavy. We've talked about it. I mean, yes, Nashville, they've been a surprise. They're sticking around.
Mhm.
I think 4 points behind the Jets, something like that, right? But I think everybody agrees that there's a three-headed monster at the top of the Central with the Jets and the Avalanche and the Stars, obviously,
Although,
right?
Did you see that Andre was injured last night?
I did see that.
Yeah, Ottinger left the game and he's not going on the road. I think they're playing in St. Louis tonight. This is Dallas Stars goaltender Jake Ottinger, who of course would be the equivalent, knock on wood, of the Jets, losing Connor Hellebuck or something along those lines.
Mhm.
That's a huge
Yeah.
potential.
Hopefully, it's
loss.
not long-term. They haven't
Right.
said anything, I don't think. But we'll have to wait and see.
It didn't look good. Anytime a goalie sort of immediately feels something and sort of skates immediately to the bench, which
Yeah.
is sort of what happened on that play, it's really not a good sign.
And I know this. I don't want Spency to be mad at me and start accusing this of being Stars lunch.
He's here. Spency's roaming around, somewhere over there. I saw him.
Okay,
already.
well then he's probably not listening then, so I'm okay to say this. But like, did you guys see when Chikrin actually left the ice?
There he is.
Oh, there he is. So I can't see from where I am. I'm
Stop, Spencer.
oh, there is Spency.
Just poking his
yeah.
face around the beard.
What are the
there.
odds that I say I'm talking about Spency and then suddenly he turns around and he's there?
It's like saying Candyman into the mirror 3 times. You say
Beetlejuice,
Spency and it just
Beetlejuice,
jumps
Beetlejuice.
out.
Anyways, no, what I was going to say is, did you guys see Chikrin actually leave the ice? And he actually left and went through the Stars walkway.
Oh, I did. I didn't know it was Chikrin, but I
Yeah.
saw that.
He
some
literally
Sens
was like
players-
he was
yeah.
actually leaving the ice, and rather than going out the road exit with all the Ottawa guys, he went down the walkway. I mean, they all connect.
Yeah.
So you could just turn left, but it wouldn't be protected for his skates, I don't think. So just a very unusual thing last night. I saw that in the game anyways.
Well, anyway, so that's what's happening. As you were talking about the three-headed monster at the top of the Central Division. So Dallas has got some concerns there now. But I mean, again, the Avalanche, they know where the Jets are in the standings. They know that this is there's only so many games in the course of an 82 game season that might have a little bit extra meaning. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on a game on December the 16th, because that would be overkill and that would be unnecessary. But when you
play tonight's post game, when the Jets win, and then it's the greatest game ever.
But when you play a division
so what
rival,
you're saying, Drew, is it's not a statement game.
You can't have a statement game until the playoffs start. That's when you get statement games. That's when the statements really
You also
matter.
can't have 35 statement games in 1 year, right?
You're making a lot of statements at that point in time. I would agree that maybe a few too many statements when that happens.
The reality is, though, guys, like the Jets beat the Avalanche. We talked about it last 2 Thursdays ago. They beat the Kings. Like the Jets are comfortably in second place right now. Well, maybe not so comfortably in top three in the Central Division right now. I should say that. And I mean, would any of us be surprised if the Jets are in first, the Avalanche are in second, and then the Stars are in third, and then the Stars are in first?
No,
I mean, it's going to happen all year long. Like Drew said, the season is relatively early still, right?
Well, it's like you said, it's clearly there's a clear line of demarcation in the top three versus everyone else right now in the Central Division. I mean, yes, there's been some nice stories, and yes, Nashville and Arizona and St. Louis.
Hasn't Arizona lost like 4 in a row?
They just won, but before that, they lost 4.
And St. Louis lost 5 until they fired their coach.
Right, exactly. So
actually, there's a good article. Sorry to interrupt you, but there's a good article in the Free Press by Kenny and Mike talking about the soap operas around the Central and how pretty much every team below the Avs, the Jets, and the Stars are suffering some sort of malaise in some capacity. So,
well, you talk about the Avalanche, tonight's opponent, and we'll talk about that later on when we have our Avalanche guest join us at the bottom of hour number 2. But you have Arturi Lekkonen's father going after Mikko Rantanen. I mean, and Arturi Lekkonen's father is a journalist. He's a journalist. He's a commentator in Finland. And he's going after his son's teammate. And I know that it's, it's his job to give unvarnished and truthful opinions. But boy, and then Mikko Rantanen goes out and has a good performance, and he shoves it back in Arturi Lekkonen's
Was I the only person that thought that
face.
was a joke at first? Like, I honestly didn't think that was a real
No, I saw
comment.
the clip.
I didn't realize it. No, I'm with you, but I thought it was originally, I didn't think it was a teammate. I thought it was just a Finnish guy he may train with back home.
Right.
And then I realized, oh, that's actually his teammate. That's really awkward.
Yeah. And Arturi Lekkonen, we should mention, isn't playing right now. He's injured. Right. So, and Lekkonen was a big acquisition for them. You guys remember from Montreal before they won the cup.
Yeah.
Right. So Arturi Lekkonen is not an insignificant player, right? Like, they miss him. And, just going back to what Drew said, like, I think, if anything has changed for me over the first 2 months of the season in terms of my expectations for the Jets, it's that I think the Jets are closer to the Avalanche and the Stars than I thought. They really are. And look at the Jets don't have Nathan McKinnon. Like, I think, you could argue that Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele is your Nathan McKinnon, but Nathan McKinnon is maybe the second best player in the entire league.
I'd agree.
After Connor McDavid, right? Only McDavid and McKinnon can do McDavid and McKinnon-y things.
At worst, if you didn't like Nathan McKinnon as a player and you're being a truthful commenter, at worst, he's a top 5 player.
Yeah, exactly. At worst, right? And then you throw in Mikko Rantanen, also a top 10 forward in the league. Cale Makar, we know how good Cale Makar is, but it's the depth, right?
Yeah.
Like, Ryan Johansson's had a bad start to the year, right? He's got 9 goals, but he's only got 2 assists, and he's been disappointing, right? The depth of the Avalanche is not the same as it was 2 years ago, and that's what I think has changed my outlook about the Jets. Is that I don't think the Jets are just going to be happy, to be third in the Central Division. I think that they know that they're as good, if not better, than the Stars and the Avalanche. I personally still think the Stars are a better team, and I realize like Jake Ottinger's injury is something to keep an eye on, and that can be a consideration, a problem, because Scott Wedgwood, I think, is a good backup goaltender, but he's not Jake Ottinger. Ottinger is a top 3, top 5 goalie in the league. So I think that's what's changed for me, guys, is that the Jets have shown, at least up until this point, that not only have they been beating teams below them in the standings, they've been beating some really top teams in the West, like Colorado, like LA. Obviously, they have to still play tonight's game, and they're not just going to get an easy victory. But, I think, that's changed for me, that I think the Jets could win this division. I mean, they have to stay healthy. Hellebuck has to stay healthy.
And they're not healthy.
Scheifele has to stay healthy. Morrissey. I mean, if they suffer a serious injury, that could
Another
change
serious
thing.
injury.
Exactly.
They're out-
I
yeah.
think they'll still be fine without Kyle Connor because they've got enough forward depth to withstand that. And we saw that against the Kings. No Kyle Connor. Well, Scheifele, Ehlers, and Velarde combined for 11 points.
Right, but that's one game.
It's not
So,
going to
I mean,
happen every game.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think that's, you know, as we've seen over the last week or so, going back, you know, almost 10 days now, you know, there seems to be a bit of a dance happening between the Jets front office and the Philadelphia Flyers front office as they've been sort of scouting one another, and that's going to be something I think everyone needs to keep an eye on. I mean, Philly has been sort of a very interesting team this year in that, you know, they basically are expected, they expected to be in much more of a rebuilding situation, yet they're, you know, top 3 in the Metropolitan Division. So they've played over their heads, but at the same time, are they also still, you know, considering that soft rebuild? And if so, that seems to be why the Jets are maybe, you know, they're scouting one another, as the Jets might have some interest in some of those guys who maybe were expected to not be long for Philadelphia. You know, and that's something to keep an eye on because, you know, how do the Jets look? Velarde, Scheifele, and Ehlers are not going to do what they did on Wednesday night every single night. So can the Jets get that secondary scoring without, you know, Kyle Connor? Because that hurts your depth. Because, you know, how many games has it been since Mason Appleton scored? It's been a lot. How many games has it been since Alex Iafallo scored? It's been about 14 games for him. A lot of the scoring that was coming from lower in the Jets lineup has dried up.
Yeah.
And now you don't have necessarily the same talent up top. So that's going to be something very interesting for the Jets to see how they can handle it when Scheifele, Ehlers, and Velarde aren't dominating their opponents.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. You can't just become a one-trick pony. I mean, that's easy enough. I mean, look, they went up against the Anze Kopitar line and he, you know, wasn't able to shut them down. And that's one of the things that Adam Lowry was talking about, why it was such an impressive effort when you're going up against the guy who's, you know, one of the best defensive centers in the NHL, and he isn't able to, you know, effectively shut your line down. So, I mean, that line was in cruise, right? I mean, like I said, Mark Scheifele was playing really well, both ends. Ehlers was flying. Velarde was doing what he's doing. And remember, he's 4 games back since his injury. So he's been looking really good. And so, again, we wanted to see what that line, look, everybody wanted to see what Nikolai Ehlers, you didn't want it to come at Kyle Connor's expense. Right. But everybody wanted to see what would Nikolai Ehlers look like on the top line. Well, Nikolai Ehlers, who's been heating up for weeks now, has, you know, is starting to show you that he deserves that time. And look, his ice time wasn't crazy because it was the second game of a back-to-back. I think he only played 16 or 17 minutes that last game. But the fact of the matter is he was really effective. And that to me was the big key is, can you get that replacement of Kyle Connor? Because you're not going to get that even. But Drew, it speaks to something you talked about, I want to say last week. It was just that improved depth. And that's the key to this trade with Pierre-Luc Dubois. You could say, and I'm sure Jets fans will, because they'll say, "Oh, they've won."
Right now, if it was 1-for-1, they've won the trade.
Well, if you look at Hezzy's,
I think Drew, if it was Iafallo for Dubois, the Jets would be winning this trade.
But the point, yeah, that's a good point. And so, like the reality is, Velarde. I mean, I think Hezzy's boy Jay Fresh came out with his hockey card or his rankings, and Velarde was like 100 or something like that. It was insane. But the point is that, and obviously it's a small sample, he hasn't played a ton of games. But the fact of the matter is, he's looked really good. And the key is that they have the depth, so you don't have to go and throw Dominic Toninato in, and you don't have to throw Jeffrey Viel in just yet. The reality is you can sustain that injury because Ehlers is able to jump up, and you've got the depth organizationally to be able to have guys who are not just going to tread water. And you're right, you obviously need guys to score goals. You can't have guys just, you know, I mean, you obviously don't want them getting scored on, but you need those guys to contribute. You need that secondary and third and fourth lines to score. But again, like I said, to me, it seems like you're going to be getting that.
Yeah, the key line, guys, I think, not just tonight against the Avalanche, Dave, but in the next 3 home games after this one against Montreal, Boston, Detroit. Boston, I believe, is the last game of the homestand on the Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Barron, I think, you know, that's still a work in progress. I think you guys would agree with that, right? Like that line, they've only played a little bit together. Yeah. I think you want to see more offense out of that line throughout this homestand, not just today. I got to be clear here because the Avalanche obviously have a lot of weaponry. We talked about it. Makar, McKinnon, and Nichushkin is back in the lineup, right? Yeah. Like Rantanen, you know,
they've loaded up that top line.
Yeah, and say whatever you want about Ryan Johansson. I mean, like he still is a guy who can score. I think that that
Yeah.
trade right now, or sorry, that acquisition, because I think it was a signing, right? Or was it a trade?
It was a buyout.
It was a buyout and then a sign.
He got bought out by
Yeah.
Nashville, and then they signed him. And look, and they took a flyer on a guy because they needed to get a guy who can play in their lineup and for relatively inexpensive. And Ryan Johansson's that guy.
Mhm.
Ryan Johansson is what he is as a player at this point in his career. He's not going to be one who can drive your team.
I think he's more of a bottom six guy, to be honest with you,
Agreed.
Drew, at this point, right? Like, in Johansson a couple of years ago, Dave, didn't he have like 60 or 70 points?
Yeah.
Right? It's just Johansson's a guy that he's more of an offensive minded guy. And if he's not scoring, I think he's okay as a second line center. I just don't think he's Nazem Kadri.
They have, but at least he's got on his wing Freddie Olsen.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Frederick Olofsson
But,
is playing right wing on the second line for the Avalanche.
And the Avalanche brought in guys like Miles Wood and Ross Colton, and they've been fine. But certainly Lowry, Niederreiter, and Appleton have been a better third line for the Jets. So look, the Avalanche, their strength is their top line, and obviously their defense led by Cale Makar. Josh Manson's a defenseman, you guys know. I really like, obviously, the son of former Jet 1.0 Dave Manson, right? So the Avalanche are going to be a big test, but I think, you're right. Scheifele, Ehlers, Velarde were great last game versus LA, but I think you definitely want to see more from the Nemesnikov line with Perfetti and Morgan Barron. I love that Morgan Barron's getting that chance, Dave, on the second line.
No, you're absolutely right, Ezzy. And just quickly, Drew, I know you want to go to break.
Yeah.
But did we not have Frederick Olsen on the show like a few years back?
Oh yeah, probably close to a decade ago now.
Yeah.
Like the original Frederick Olsen, not the winger for
I
the
said
Avalanche.
Freddie Olsen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we definitely did have him on back in the early days of Jets.
I think that
2.0.
was prior to the Jets coming back, or after, like it was like 2011, right?
Yeah, it was right around with the return of the
Yeah,
Jets. No
long time
question
ago.
about it. Alrighty, we go to break. When we come back from CJOB Radio, Ross Levitan is going to join us for more Jets talk. It's a Saturday morning. We're live at number 2 Donald Street. There's people in the back. Make some noise, the people in the background. There you go. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on location and live on all of your social media platforms. I pressed the wrong button. You'll forgive me. It happens. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, but nonetheless, I did press the wrong
It's
button.
amazing
Welcome
how
back.
many beers you can drink in 2 minutes.
I didn't know that you could shotgun 3 beers at one time, Ezzy, but like Will Ferrell in Old School, you're just gonna have one, and eventually you're gonna go streaking up
We
through
don't
the
do one.
yeah, you're gonna go streaking up through the quad to the gymnasium. Actually, I've never seen you go. That would require running, and that's
My
not your
streaking days are behind me, Drew.
Did you? I remember when you guys. Well, he's not here to defend himself, but Richie P had a famous streaking incident back in his youthful days. But he's not around, so we won't mention that on air. Now that he's a respectable member of the bar and everything along those lines.
That's a
Nonetheless,
different kind of bar now.
that's
Drew.
right. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. We're live at number 2 Donald Street, Farmery Brewing. There's people here. Spency's out in the parking lot cooking some food, I believe. Spency's tailgating a little bit, so you could, if you're coming down this way, we're gonna feed you and we're gonna give you something to drink as well. Well, not give you, that would require us going out of pocket, but you can buy something to drink as well, as we're live here on this Saturday morning from the Farmery Brewing retail location. For more Jets talk from CJOB 680, the Superstation, let's bring in Ross Levitan. Ross, good morning. Thanks for joining us, buddy. How are
What's up,
things?
Ross?
Hey, fellas, I'm doing well. Are any of those beers cracked? They look pretty full in front of you there.
We're pacing ourselves. It's only 9:36 in the morning, and unfortunately, we all have, or most of us have some parental responsibilities afterwards. So it's one thing to dump out of the house at 8:30 to get here to set up and everything else. It's another thing to come home at 11 o'clock and be half in the bag. Our wives and significant others might object to that.
Buzzkill, Drew. Ross, I'm going to have at least 6 before we leave here.
I did
Attaboy. Hey, just tell them it's work. It's work.
That's right, honey. It's work. I'm just doing what I got to do to support the business. Ross, appreciate you joining us this Saturday morning. Great to see you. Talk about the Winnipeg Jets. We were talking before, Ross, about how the Jets, that comeback on Wednesday night against the LA Kings, and how significant it was, and from my perspective, how unexpected it was when being down 2-0 on the second half of a back-to-back. From what you're seeing from this Winnipeg Jets, the never say die mentality and the belief that this team has, and that they're never necessarily out of a game, it is really refreshing, and I would say speaks to the cohesiveness of the unit that they've been showing as of late.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, isn't this just Rick Bowness style hockey though, right? He wants everything to be tight in the defensive zone, the structure, everything. Like to me, it all starts with your best players and Kyle Connor to a lesser extent, and obviously the injury's tough. But for me, it starts and ends with Mark Scheifele, and the commitment to defense for him this year has been a lot better. He was a guy. So this is my third season kind of really following the Jets and being a part of Winnipeg. And for me, like when I got here, like it was all offense. I don't know if he was on the right side of the red line too many times. And now since Rick Bowness has come in more and more and more, I'm seeing him, hounding pucks back and tracking and doing all the right things in the defensive zone that really gets him the opportunity to get offense here in a different way. So no, in terms of the comeback, like it's a never say die attitude. That's what it comes down to against LA. There's some money on the board there from the former Kings. So to get that win, and that's a tough place to play. That's a tough team. They got a lot of great defensive players too. So usually when they get a lead, they button it down. And no, I was a very impressive win and a great way to come home, right? Because you have that strange road trip. Typically, right, it's Anaheim, LA, and then you go up to San Jose for them to have to do the Northern Cali swing and then right back down. I mean, not to say that it's two tough times for them. They're getting to enjoy some nice weather and play hockey, but at the same time, I think that it certainly goes a long way to building that cohesiveness to come back on a happy flight here to Winnipeg. And hey, it doesn't get any easier. This is going to be a heck of a game tonight down at the Canada Life Center.
And then Ross, you've got Boston next Friday, right? Like, so, I mean, you've had some easier games lately, but you're getting two of the best teams in the league. I think a lot of people would say that the Jets are one of the best teams in the league as well. So you could look at it like that as well. But we were talking about, the team defense, and Drew's brought this up several times. It's been 16, 17 games, 18 games where the Jets have allowed 3 or less goals.
It's really, sorry for interrupting.
It is incredible. That's why I'm asking Ross about it.
Yeah, it's beyond incredible that it's the same, that these guys are doing what they couldn't do for so many years.
Right. And I think, Ross, you'd agree. I mean, Gabe Vilardi is a better defensive player than Pierre-Luc Dubois and Blake Wheeler combined. I mean, let's be honest here. Alex Iafallo, again, a good defensive player. Vlad Nemestikov, Nino Niederreiter, who the Jets acquired prior to last year's trade deadline, good defensive forward. So we got to give the forwards credit too, but it's essentially the same group of 6 defensemen as last year, right? Like obviously Logan Stanley, Declan Chisholm, they've been playing a little bit, but you've got Nate Schmidt in there right as it stands now with Dylan Sandberg. And I just wanted to ask you what you've seen out of that group of defensemen, because I mean, Neil Pionk, I think you'd agree, he's having a better year than last year. And, guys like Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello, they need to be praised for how solid and how they've really kept that defense together and just led by example. Because, right, like you look at the LA Kings, after they scored those 2 goals, the Jets just completely shut them down.
Yeah, you're certainly right, Ezra. And I think what really impresses me about this Jets defensive core is the fact that everyone brings a little something else to the table, right? Sure. Dylan DeMello, great tracker, great one-on-one defense, defends with his stick well. You got obviously your star in Morrissey. Everything runs through him. But to me, Brendan Dillon's kind of the straw that stirs the drink. Whenever they need a physical stop on the back end, he's there to come put someone on their backside. And he moves the puck a lot better than I gave him credit for before I watched him on an everyday basis. Everything's on the tape with him, and whether it's getting it to a forward for a quick chip in on a change, or whether he's trying to skate the puck up himself, I've been super impressed with his ability to do different things in the back end. And then he complements Pionk so well, but allowing him to kind of use his vision and see the ice a lot better. So I think that top 4, it's locked in, and you can see it just in terms of how long these guys have played with each other. We see, like, I'm obviously following Ottawa pretty closely as well, and they can't figure out who's playing with who, and that inconsistency doesn't lead to any sort of results. Whereas you look with the Jets, and I'm just pulling up the numbers right now because I'm curious in it as well. Yeah, like Morrissey and DeMello played 425 minutes together at 5-on-5. Like that's got to be among the most in the league. So just that continuity that they have together. Neil Pionk with Brendan Dillon's at 317 minutes. Like that's so locked in that now Rick Bowness can say, hey, look, we're going up against a bigger team or a team that likes to grind down low. Let's say a Dallas or a team like that. Now we could put Logan Stanley in the lineup if we want for a game. We have different options with, Declan Chisholm showing that he can use a second power play unit if need be. Now, Nate Schmidt, I was a little torn when he got pulled out of the lineup because even though the points aren't there, I didn't think it was necessarily him causing big mistakes that ended up in the back of the net. And usually that's when you'd see a veteran guy like that, well-respected, be taken out of the lineup. Usually it's a bit more than, hey, we want to see someone else. But it just shows, and it also it's a stick tap to Nate Schmidt's attitude that, he's taking this in stride and all that. So you got to give him credit too, but also the cohesiveness of the group that you can, pick and choose guys out of lineup, bring others in, and there's no lag in kind of the structure. Everybody knows what their role is when they're in. And I really have to just give all the credit to Rick Bowness as well here, that he's putting the pieces in the right spot to succeed.
Well, I mean, one of the things that are giving the Jets an opportunity to succeed would be a guy named Connor Hellebuck, Ross, because he has been simply phenomenal. And our friend Ken Weeb of the Free Press had a real good article about him in that periodical. And it's interesting to see what, Jets fans were a little nervous, even though he's a Vezina guy and he's a perennial Vezina guy, I should say. And you have that expectation, signs the big contract, doesn't have a great start to the season. You're like, oh boy. And realistically, everybody knew it was going to even out. I don't know how many people expected it to even out this much, where he's had probably the best stretch of his entire career in the last, I think he's had 11 straight quality starts. His numbers have been ridiculous. I think he's allowed like 15 goals in the last 9 games or something like that versus 13 in his first 3. So he's just been on fire. What have you seen from Connor Hellebuck that's just kind of led to this turnaround for Winnipeg?
Yeah, I mean, it's a presence, right? Like he takes so much air out of the offensive team when they're in the zone. There's not many rebounds. And yeah, it's been since November 14th since the last time he allowed 3 goals in a game.
More than a month.
Goals. Like that's incredible. And there's been some games like the Dallas game, maybe a bit low event, but then the next game, the first one where I was boots on the ground there in the press box against Edmonton, where, he wants to have that one back from above the circles, even though it did have a slight tip off of DeMelo's stick, but still, huge game there with 36 saves. And no, what I see from him is just a calming presence. And it's one of those where you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. And as someone who follows teams that don't have goaltending, and you see what you have here with Connor Hellebuck, you just don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. What he's doing is incredible. And the one thing I like to refer to with Hellebuck is just stay in your net, man. That's the one thing in his game that really scares me when he goes and plays the puck. He's maybe a little overconfident, maybe a bit of that Mike Smith syndrome, but without the talent to back it up, but wants to play every single puck he can. So that's kind of the one nitpick I have with his game. But otherwise, like, he gives this team a chance to win night in, night out, and lucky to have him for the next 7-8 years now.
Saturday morning, we are live at number 2 Donald Street, Farmery Brewing, their retail location, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on location. Spency is in the parking lot making pancakes. So we're reliably informed that the pancakes are on.
That's how we roll, Ross.
So,
beer and pancakes on Saturday morning.
Ross, if
hopefully they're beer battered pancakes.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to go check in out back in the parking lot in a couple minutes as the tailgate is on, as we're live here. Ross Levitan from CJOB Radio, our guest on this Saturday morning, talking about the Winnipeg Jets. Ross, the team obviously going to be without Kyle Connor for the next 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, whatever the timeline might be. The Jets are clearly going to be a buyer come trade deadline time, barring something remarkably unforeseen. Could you foresee the Jets maybe trying to get a head start on that, in trying to maybe replace some of that Kyle Connor offense with him out of the lineup for the next couple of months, maybe try and get ahead of the trade market? We've been told that, the Flyers and the Jets are dancing around one another as of late. Could you see the Jets really stepping on the gas pedal given their impressive start to the season so far?
The Flyers are so funny. It's almost like they don't want to win. They're like, wait, we're in second in the match. Like, what's going on? Like, we gotta get on the right track here. We're trying to load up for 3-4 years when Matvei Michkov comes over. But no, all jokes aside, I think that that's certainly something that Cheveldayoff would like to do, I would hope, because you want to also, as much as it is to bolster your team, it's about giving them some credit and saying, hey, guys, you're playing well. You're down a man. Like, I want to help you guys keep on the right track. I think that goes a long way in the room as well with the core. And sometimes maybe you get the guy for a bit of a cheaper price in terms of per game played, because if you only get them for 20 games at the end of a season, right, like Kevin Hayes maybe back in the day, but like that, then you're looking and you're like, oh, was it worth it? But if you get them for a half season, one, you're able to bring them in, work with them, get them in the system, get them playing up to the speed that you want them to play, as well as fill in a hole here that an injured player is causing. Now, when I look at Philly, there's one guy in particular. Travis Konechny would just be the perfect fit, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he's being traded for peas though. Like that, you're gonna have to pony up, and you're probably gonna have to plug your nose and say, you know what, I don't like giving up the return I am, but fans would see Travis Konecny play 5 shifts and they'd be all in. This guy's a rat, and I say that in a very endearing way. He gets under guys' skin, and he plays the wing but can take faceoffs as well. He's a guy who you could certainly see playing a top 6 role for an extended period of time. I know he's got more than just this year left on his deal, so it wouldn't be a rental. I know Cheveldayoff likes that. We've seen that with Niederreiter coming in with 1 extra year, obviously extended since then, but I certainly think that it's something that they should be looking for. Now, I mean, it's going to be a forward though, right? Because they've got their carousel on defense right now, unless someone's willing to take Logan Stanley's contract. And then even still, you've got 7 guys right now that you can have on a rotation, and maybe you get a guy closer to the deadline. But to me, I'm looking at a forward, and if Scott Lawton's available, there's another name who maybe wouldn't cost as much, but he's a Torts favorite. So good luck prying him out of his fingers in Philly. We know Torts has some say there in hockey operations as well as head coach, but that would be a team I would target. There's no doubt. But if I'm a Philly Flyers fan, I'm looking and I'm saying, hey, we might be a team of destiny this year. What are we doing moving on? So no, it's a really interesting point, and one that I think that they should be looking at with the long-term injury to Kyle Connor.
Well, first off, you're getting high praise from CBC's Pat Kanuga. I agree with Pat. You did do an excellent job filling in for the obvious icon, Kelly Moore.
Yeah, so big shoes. I was saying I couldn't even get past the heel in the boot, but I did what I could. That's all.
Love it. But, we are talking about other teams aside from the Jets. So you mentioned you cover the Senators, Locked On Sens. And, I was going to wait and ask you another Jets question, Ross. But
please, I'm not ready to talk about it.
Well, I mean, they lost, obviously, yesterday to Dallas. I think they're 3-7 in their last 10. So I'm going to keep this open-ended with the Senators, because obviously they have some important games coming up, and they got to stop losing. But where do you go from here? And I'm not even going to ask you, because I'm sure, you've talked a lot about DJ Smith's, job and everything like that. But, where do they go? Because obviously they made some key moves, and this team is hoping to make the playoffs. It's not another, under 500 season is not going to be acceptable. I think you'd agree in Ottawa.
No, you should go to Locked On Senators YouTube comments. That's an absolute trip right now. Nobody's happy, and hey, at least I got the Jets, right? So I kind of take it from a more, let's say, professional level when I'm talking about the Jets, and then with the Senators, that's a team that I was born like a month before the Senators came home, grew up in Ottawa. And so my first memories were them making the playoffs in 97. And then it was 13 straight years with the playoffs in kind of my formative years. So I'm used to this team being an every year playoff team.
I thought I saw a Chris Phillips jersey behind you there, Ross.
Yes, no, it's probably my Anton Volchenkov jersey in the closet hanging up. The A train, come on. Right. The old school Brendan Dillon, basically, from those Senators teams. But yeah, no, I'm definitely a lot more emotional when it comes to Senators in terms of, blow the thing up. I think I tweeted out, get Anton Forsberg out of the organization last night. But I also say that nothing I tweet during games can be held against me the next morning. So no, it's a complete mess right now. It really is. And I don't like talking about coach's job. I know you guys probably had a lot of conversations about Paul Maurice when things weren't going well before he ultimately resigned.
Yes, we did, Ross. Yes, we did.
It's difficult, right? Because these are people. He's a good guy, and you can see that he comes through in the media availabilities. He's supporting causes. He's a really good guy. But at some point, he's the 6th longest serving head coach. The only guy who doesn't have a Stanley Cup, who's been with his team longer, is Rod Brind'Amour, who's got a lifetime contract, a Jack Adams and everything else with the Carolina Hurricanes. So you just look, and I always go back to saying better coaches have been fired for less than what we've seen in the last 5 seasons under DJ Smith. And at this point, it's almost like stability is the phrase that's being uttered in Ottawa about Steve Staios, and he's the acting GM right now. So that's the other wrench in all this. They don't have a general manager, and you'd expect him to be the guy who hires the next coach. But it's getting untenable right now. Their home record is a mess, and they always say, the old adage is when you stink on the road, because you don't want to let your fans go home with a bad taste in their mouth. I was home for the home opener. They won that game against Philly. They win the next night against Tampa. Then they beat the wheels off the Washington Capitals. I tweeted that during that game that the Senators are about to be a problem for the entire NHL. Well, since
Ross,
they've got 6 wins since. It's a complete mess.
We have a word for that. It's called a Ginsburg guarantee, was what you just did.
Well,
Yeah, Ross.
that's
We're not
me,
going to hold
man.
it against you, Ross, especially with all the bad predictions that have come from this show.
Oh, it's so bad, man.
Hey,
So-
not this show, from you.
Yeah,
From you.
Sorry, specifically me. Yeah.
Come on.
Is that why you put him in the middle? So you
Yeah.
guys, hey, if you get off, you just
When he-
give him a squeeze?
Yeah, if it
Yeah.
gets out of hand, we just got to go for one of the love handles right over
Ticklish.
there.
Yeah, the eject button, he's all the way out. No, yeah, it's tough, and we couldn't even do the Jets a favor last night, right? Like, I'm sure everyone in Winnipeg was like, hey, get us these 2 points, keep them out of Dallas's hands there in the Central Division. And they were up 2-0, they were up 4-2, and at no point was I confident that they were going to win that game. And that's a sad feeling right there. So something's got to give. They haven't even changed assistant coaches in 5 years, and it's like, hey, maybe do something different. They've brought in guys to help, and it almost feels like they've got a babysitter now, because they went back and grabbed Jacques Martin, who hasn't been a head coach in the league since the mid 2000s. But everyone's like, hey, bring him in. He preaches defensive structure, and they've got none of that right now. So yeah, it's extremely sad times where playoffs were something that were very much promised at this point. They've traded their last 2 first-round picks that are both top 15 picks. You don't do that unless you think you're going to take a step forward, and they certainly haven't. So it's a bit of a tough kind of parallel, though, because fans have the pain of 7 years right now, whereas the new owner and the new president of hockey ops, they're looking at this from a long-term view starting now. So It's kind of like they have to separate the last 7 years from what they're seeing with this group right now. They're in an evaluation standpoint, but I'm sure there's a lot of F's in that report card right now.
Ross Levitan of CJOB 680 Radio, the radio home of the Winnipeg Jets, is our guest this Saturday morning. We're live at Farmery Brewery, number 2 Donald Street. There's pancakes being flipped in the parking lot. There's beer all around us. As he's double fisting, you know it's a Saturday morning party right now.
You know, Ross, I'm going to bring it back to the Jets. And you know, the question is, we saw Ville Heinola and Rasmus Kupari skating at Hockey for All Center, doing some light contact as well. When Rick Bowness was asked about it yesterday in the media availability, he said, they're still a long ways. He said a ways away, which doesn't sound like it's tomorrow. And the reality was, especially with Ville Heinola, we anticipated it being in 2024, especially given he's likely to go down to the Moose. But once he does go down to the Moose and starts to get conditioned and get ready, he's going to have to come back up. And at that point, you have a decision to make from an organizational standpoint. You can kick it down the road, and that's what his injury allowed them to do. But at some point, you have to start making a decision. You've got, you've touched on it. Stanley, we're really talking about that 6, 7, 8, but Stanley, Chisholm, Heinola, you could leave him. He's waiver exempt. He can stay down in the AHL, but he showed at the preseason. He probably doesn't deserve to be there. So if you're the Jets, what are you doing? And again, we talked about it. There's still the talk about the Jets potentially acquiring a top 4 defenseman on that right side to push everything down.
Well, that's the other part of it too, right? And I've seen kind of firsthand here, when you have too many lefties, it actually does matter a lot more than maybe I gave it credit for, earlier on in my life. But now watching it and just seeing how quick the game is and how fast you have to be in transition from your own zone. I mean, there's a reason why DeMello's been the perfect partner for Morrissey, right? If he's a lefty, he's probably there for a week or two, and they realize, hey, let's move it on. So the top 4, I like how it's lefty righty, but then they've just got a pile of lefties, with Heinola being another one at the bottom. So I think if they could go out and get a cheap right shot defenseman that's, kind of like a Nemestikov pickup where nobody really thinks a whole lot of it at the time, and then he comes in and you're like, oh, this guy's actually got some game. Like, let's keep him around. I think that could be good. But with Heinola, yeah, you never want to see a guy lose their spot because of injury. But at the same time, did he ever really have a full-time spot, or was it, a preseason that you're kind of like, oh, okay, intriguing. Let's see what he can do in a regular season setting. And I'd like to see a 10-game sample size, because the last one didn't go so well last year. But I'm also not really in the position where the Jets are to force him into the lineup. I think I'd rather kind of wait and see. And then I know it sucks to say, but I think he's kind of got to go back to the Moose and earn another call up. Like Declan Chisholm has been more patient. He's older. And to me, he deserves the opportunity right now, the way that he's played, not only in his small sample size in the NHL, but like the numbers in the AHL are even much better than Heinola. So I think that he's deserving of this chance, and it'll come. It'll come for Heinola. I'm convinced of that. how many defensemen do the teams use every year, right? So it's not a
Yeah.
situation where, you know, he's never going to get a chance, but I think he's going to have to be patient. And that's a tough, it's an ankle, right? That's a tough injury for a guy whose mobility is his number one attribute. So I'm going to be curious to see how he looks, but obviously it is a great sign though, Dave, seeing him back skating, and hopefully, you know, that all-star break is where kind of you're maybe circling for Kyle Connor as well in early February. And maybe you see that same time frame for Heinola where he's back at full speed. Maybe get some games before, but I think you got to be patient with a guy coming off a fractured ankle.
Ross, last one for you. Obviously, the loss of Kyle Connor is huge for the Jets. They were able to withstand it, especially on Wednesday night against the Kings. But no one's going to step in and immediately replace him and replace the offense and replace the elite goal scoring. But of the players sort of not on that first line for the Jets, who needs to step up in your mind and begin to maybe fill in that role, or begin to, you know, move up and play with Perfetti and Nemesnikov? We know Barron's going to be up there tonight. Who do you need to see sort of elevate a little bit more so that the Jets can begin to withstand the loss of Kyle Connor?
Well, I'm with Rick Bowness in terms of Morgan Barron getting that first opportunity. I always felt he's been kind of underused here, and he obviously brings it on the PK. He's a big body, long stick, and defend well in his own zone. But I mean, I do feel like there's a little maybe extra offense than we've seen from him. I mean, the AHL numbers didn't really get a chance here outside of that little playoff run with the Moose, but in Hartford before the trade with Andrew Kopp, I mean, he was always a guy who was kind of a two-way guy. And to me, like, I think letting him kind of play a little bit more in the offensive zone will help him. And if not, like the kind of the catch-22 here is I don't want to touch anyone on that third line because they're so good together. Like, I don't think Mason Appleton should be the guy moving up because I think that he's found a nice role on this team playing with Niederreiter and with Adam Lowry. So I don't want to touch that line. So it really leaves me to two guys. It's either going to be Alex Iafallo, who's offense is completely dried up, still doing the right things out there, still on the right side of the puck, still a guy who you can rely on, but the offense isn't what it was at the start of the season when he was on a bit of a run. And then I think that's why it's either going to be Morgan Barron for me or Alex Iafallo. And if one of those guys can even like come 80, 70% of the offense, not that Kyle Connor put up, but you know, that you'd expect from a Velarde on the second line and that opportunity, I think they're going to be in good shape. But like, as much as it sucks, at least this didn't happen before Velarde came back, right? Because that to me is the Kyle Connor replacement, and putting him up on that line. And I've been watching Nikolai Ehlers since my 2 years in Halifax coincided with his, and I've always been a huge fan of his. I think he had a 31-game point streak that year, so I've been kind of watching his career develop since then. And
did you play for the Mooseheads too?
Me, no chance. I was up drinking the illegal Curve Ale up in the third deck. No, I was just there as a kid having fun.
Know.
And Timo Meyer was actually his teammate there too, so they had a pretty stacked roster. Mackenzie Weegar on the back end, but no, back to the Jets and their top six. Like, to me, it's all about kind of giving up less than they score. So if they're scoring a half a goal less every 2 games because Connor's out, well, hey, give up that same amount less, and they'll be good to go. As long, hey, all they're counting on is Connor Hellebuyck not giving up more than 2 goals in a game ever, and they'll be good to go. But tonight's gonna be fun, boys. Tonight's gonna be fun. This is the kind of hockey you live for, right? Saturday night, you got one of the best teams in the league coming to town. You've got superstars coming to town in McKinnon and Makar, and it's gonna be a great test for this Jets team.
Amen, Ross. Preach.
It's going to be a good one. The Jets and the Avalanche tonight on 680 CJOB radio. That's where Ross Levitan does his great work. Ross, appreciate your time and insight this morning. Great first time appearance here on Illegal Curve. We got some pancakes and we got some beer for you. So if you head down to number 2 Donald Street, Farmery Brewing, just pop on in and grab yourself some.
Are you guys pancake guys or waffle guys overall?
Well, Spency's the one making it. Spency is a big fan of
That's
ours.
a big question, though.
I'm more of a pancake guy myself.
Yeah, Ross. First off, pancakes and waffles.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah. Oh, I like a nice stack of buttermilk pancakes with some syrup and a little butter.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I'll go with mine. If my mom is making them, waffles, because my mom's a great waffle maker. But
Yep.
if I'm out, I'm a pancake guy.
But very important note about Dave.
when he goes out and he orders pancakes, if you dare put icing sugar on those
That's-
pancakes,
no.
he is going to throw a fit like you
Yes,
haven't
that is
seen in
true.
your life. It's very immature of him for somebody of his age, but do not put icing sugar anywhere near Dave.
I
'cause we-
actually agree with that. That's a good take.
Thank you.
Any
Ross.
icing sugar you're gonna put on, just put more syrup instead.
That's
How
a
about
good-
that?
And
Yeah.
Ross, can I give a shout out to crepes too? I like a nice
Crepes are
crepe
good.
on a nice Saturday morning too. Yeah.
On the morning, but that for me, at least for a crepe, it's not a savory crepe. For me, I need the Nutella on there. I need strawberries. Like
Yeah,
I
oh,
need
yeah.
a nice sweet
The
crepe.
question is,
You're getting me excited
are
here.
they Cubans rolling the crepes or are they Venezuelans?
No,
That's
they're
the biggest-
They're
Puerto
not,
Rican.
they're Puerto Rican.
Puerto
They were
Ricans.
Puerto Rican on
That's right.
Seinfeld. Exactly.
I think what we need to do is go for breakfast with Ross after the show here.
Well, I'm going for breakfast out in the front as soon as Drew takes us to commercial break.
Okay, I'm going to
Yeah,
take a commercial.
that's
Dave and Ezzy are getting hangry, so which means I got to get the hell
Yeah,
out of
hey,
here.
let me tell you one thing though, because I had to get the whiteout jersey right when I moved to Winnipeg. Like there's no chance I can come in. So I was like, how do I get a jersey that kind of has like a little tie to Ottawa in it as well? Do we see the C? We know what's on the back, right? A little trivia.
Chuck, right?
Chuck number 7. Let's
There
go.
you go.
Fellas.
Love it.
There you go.
You see that at the rink? Hey, give me a cheers. I'm going to try to make it down tonight. It's going to be a great game. You fellas do a great job. Appreciate you reaching out. Really great to come on. And anytime, I'll be ready for you. So
Thanks,
enjoy
Ross.
the rest of your show, boys. We'll talk later.
Thank you.
Cheers, Ross.
Levitan, CJOB Radio. Let's go to break. It's pancake time. Spency's got him
Yummy.
flipping in the parking lot. Much more Jets talk to come. Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on location at number 2 Donald Street. That's the Farmery Brewing retail location. Come join us. We got breakfast. We got beer. We got beer for breakfast. Saturday morning, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly, see lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Betalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fetalytics.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at ZappiaGroup.com.
Saturday morning, we're back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live here at Farmery Brewery, number 2 Donald Street. Spency is out in the parking lot. He's got pancake. You guys went out there. I was holding down the board here.
setup that Spency is cooking out of the back of his truck right now. He's got a flat top grill. He's cooking pancakes, sausage, bacon. This is the best day of my life. Sorry, aside from the birth of my children and my wedding, and maybe no, that's it. This is the best day of my life.
So if you're in the neighborhood and you're looking for something to do and you need some ice cold illegal curve lager, head on down here to number 2 Donald Street Farmery Brew, and you get some pancakes, you get some sausage, you get some beer. It's a pretty good morning if you ask me, and some, of course, Winnipeg Jets talk courtesy of us here at Illegal Curve. Still to come on the program at the bottom of the hour, Megan Angley from DNVR Avalanche. She covers the Colorado Avalanche. They're in town, of course, to face the Jets later on tonight. A heavyweight Central Division matchup in downtown Winnipeg later tonight. And of course, the Illegal Curve post-game show right around 9 p.m. tonight, bringing you all the latest on the Jets and the Avs. So it's a busy day full of everything Illegal Curve related on this Saturday morning. Let me ask you guys this, and we sort of touched on it a little bit. Look at who's here. It's Hart, it's Jackie, and it's Joe. Right behind us, our great friends Hart, Jackie, and Joe have come down here to join us here at Farmery Brewing. They're coming for some Joe, I think you're a little young for pancakes, or for beer.
Young for pancakes.
But that sucker you got there looks pretty good. I think mom and dad can have a beer though this early in the morning.
Drew, let Hart and Jackie determine if Joe's ready for a beer, okay?
Fair enough.
You have your own kids to worry about.
That's right. I don't have to worry about other people's kids. It's great to see them joining us down here at number 2 Donald Street. What I was going to say, talking about the dance that the Jets and the Flyers are doing, scouting each other. So could you see the Jets maybe getting ahead of the trade market, particularly in light of the Kyle Connor injury? We know that wouldn't be the typical MO of Kevin Cheveldayoff, who likes to slow play everything. But you've sort of seen the trade market, loosen up a little bit. The Avalanche made a trade yesterday.
The only team that's making trades right now are the Canucks.
Well, the Avalanche traded Thomas Tatar last night to Seattle. Sorry, I couldn't
for a
remember.
5th round draft pick. Kind of a weird trade, just because the Avalanche just signed him.
Right.
And Tatar hasn't been very good this year. I mean, we just saw him, not this past Thursday, but
10 days ago.
10 days ago. And I think Tatar's only got a couple goals, but a little bit surprised. Obviously, it's not working out there, and they just wanted to free up a little bit of cap space. He wasn't making a lot of money. I want to say $1 to $2 million a year. I'd have to look that up, but a little bit weird. But look, who are we talking about when it comes to the Flyers? That's the issue. Like, a lot of people are throwing out Joel Farabee. You see Travis Konechny's name out there. The defenseman is Walker, that Sean Walker that people have been talking about. He's on the trade bait board, everything like that, right? So I don't know, guys. Like, I mean, every year it seems like there's one player or one team that everybody fixates on. And look, there's other teams that are going to be moving players. Like, I don't know if you've looked at the bottom of the standings. We were just talking about Ottawa.
Right.
I mean, Ottawa is not that far away from the bottom of the standings, right? I'm not saying that Ottawa is going to be a seller, but I mean, this whole notion of Philadelphia, it's really hard to answer that, Drew. I mean, you're not just talking about Philadelphia.
Well, I'm talking about Philly lately because that's who the links have been made between the Jets and the Flyers, because they've been scouting each other and they've been prominent in each other's press boxes on the road trip and everything else.
No, there's no doubt that those teams are scouting each other. I guess my overall thoughts are the Jets' big need is a right shot defenseman. Look, Kyle Connor is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
I don't think you're making a trade to fill the void of Kyle Connor, Dave. Like, we just saw.
But let me ask you this, Ezzy. Sorry for interrupting you. So, most of these teams that have playoff aspirations and or consider themselves, to be legitimate playoff teams, always wait for the trade deadline to make that trade.
Yeah.
And then, it takes some amount of time to acclimatize those players that they acquire to the team. Paul Stastny, when he was acquired from the Blues by the Jets, was sort of the exception to that rule. Yeah. He came in and he fit immediately. Kevin Hayes didn't fit that well with the Jets.
No, he was playing on the fourth line.
Fourth line, Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, no, Hayes was not a good trade deadline acquisition.
We got somebody else joining us here. It's my dad, the one and only Sheldon Mandel, joining us here live at number 2 Donald Street. Hi, Dad.
Big drinker.
You needed some beer, I know. He's gonna have a sip of beer and then take a nap in the back of his car if history's any indicator.
Well, hopefully he'll just go and eat some pancakes.
Yeah, go say hi to Spencer.
Spency's
you know Spencer. You spent the summer together at your local golf course. Sheldon and Spencer, you're tight.
I'm not saying otherwise.
There's rumor that Spencer's changing his last name to Mandel as well.
Drew, you're getting the brother you always wanted.
That's right.
There's not enough money for 2 kids.
Hi, Dad. Thank you for joining us. But my point being,
best cameo ever right there.
why not move
Get ahead of
early?
it.
Why
Yeah.
not get ahead of it? You get a guy for longer. Sure, he's got a little bit more of a cap hit. There's Heartsy coming buying. You bringing Ezzy a beer to drink?
I figured why not?
Okay. You got to open it up now. If you're gonna crack,
Thanks,
if
Heartsy.
Heartsy's bringing you a beer, you got to crack it open.
For people who don't know, that's my best friend Hart Jacob right there.
Not only that's an honor. Hart and Ezzy used to live together, so Hart is personally responsible
Yes.
for
Getting Ezzy through about 5 years.
yeah, for Ezzy still being alive. Really,
right.
is basically what it boils down to.
Pass them on to you guys.
Yeah,
The IC beer Heartsy is good any time of the day, but especially at 10:10 in the morning. It just it's even better.
All right, guys, have a good.
All right, thanks.
thank you, Heartsy.
You know what? Look, to answer your question, Drew, I
Yeah.
think it's an interesting one, and you know, obviously the Jets have to be aware of cap ramifications. Like, I don't think that they're really going to acquire anyone with term because even if the cap's going up,
Right.
the Jets don't have that much latitude, right? You've
Well,
got
especially with the Shifley
and Connor,
Yeah, and
you know,
Hellebuck,
and
yeah.
Hellebuck. Sorry,
Connor
well,
Hellebuck,
Connor
yeah.
Hellebuck. But you've got those two guys who basically are taking up the full increase in that salary cap. You got Cole Perfetti, who's going to need to get. You might have to bridge him, but you might want to sign him. And obviously, there's stuff that can be done, Ezzy, over the summer that can limit. You know, like if you want to, you know, buy out or trade a Nate Schmidt, that can give you some latitude in terms of the cap. But when folks are saying trade for Travis Sanheim, for example, obviously a good kid from Elkhorn, Manitoba, the reality is he's signed for 5 more years at $6.25 million. Jets don't exactly have that kind of room. So the fact of the matter is you have to be aware of what that ramification is. But yeah, Drew, it's an interesting idea of getting ahead of it. And also, so you don't allow the pricing to go up significantly.
Right.
Now, it's hard. The reason why it's harder to make trades at the beginning of the year or this point of the year is because some teams are still in it.
Right.
So if you're the Philadelphia Flyers, how do you sell to your organization or to your fans? Hey, we're second in the Metro, but we're dumping the farm. So that's
Totally.
that to me is the difficulty. So you can pick off. Look, the Calgary Flames, they're probably open for business. The San Jose Sharks, open for, I don't know how many people you want in the Sharks, but they're open for business. So certain teams are going to be open, just not as many as you would have liked if you're doing something early. And that's just kind of the difficulty in trying to make a trade early, I would think. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a value to getting a guy maybe a month earlier than the trade deadline. I mean, I know that teams have been doing it like a week or two earlier. They're not waiting for the exact trade deadline day to make the big moves.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if you do it a month early, that's just a month earlier that your team is going to get that guy integrated into the lineup and acclimatized to the culture.
And ideally, a month better that your team is going to be.
Right.
I mean, that's why you're making the trade, is to improve your roster. So,
Correct.
I mean, look, it's agreed that it doesn't normally happen mid-December. This would not be your typical time frame where anything is going to happen, where anything significant, anything with any sort of splash to it. But you know what? With the circumstances, given what they are, with the Jets, you know, not being an offensively dynamic team, you know, by and large, they've struggled to get the puck in the net. Now, of course, we know that
Not against LA.
well, you know, we know what happened on Wednesday, but I think that's often been more of the exception than the rule. They've been better defensively than they have been offensively. I wonder if you do try and shore that up, if you do try and maybe increase your depth, if you do try and find a way to sort of juice your lineup earlier rather than later, you know, just given the circumstances.
I think, Drew, we're all in agreement that if you can get, and I'm not trying to belittle you or your segment at all, because I think it's a good segment. I think we all agree, and most Jets fans agree, that if the Jets can get a player for the right price, you do that whenever you need to prior to the deadline. So
Right.
if that's late December, if that's early January, early February, whatever, and I've brought this up before. I mean, look, I do think that the Jets could make a trade for a forward, but I really do think like they have to find their Matthias Ekholm. And I brought up the return because there was a big return for Matthias Ekholm, but
you're talking about when Edmonton acquired him from Nashville.
right. Edmonton had to give up Tyson Barrie, prospect Reed Schaefer, who was a late first-round pick,
Right.
good prospect, and then a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. So I think if you're talking about, let's use Travis Sanheim as an example. And by the way, if we're talking about Sanheim, as you mentioned, from Elkhorn, right-hand defenseman, I mean, I think that would be a great trade. I think he would in theory become your best right shot defenseman, and that moves Dylan DeMello down, and it moves.
I think
Neil.
he's a left shot. He plays on the right side.
Sorry, you're right.
Yeah,
He's a left shot, plays on the right side. I work at Hockey Manitoba. I should know that. But no, I'm just joking. But I think, you know, in theory, Dave, then Schmidt gets bumped down. He's your seventh defenseman.
Right.
And then probably your third pair is Dylan Sandberg, Neil Pionk. And then you have the best third pair in the league, right?
That's right.
And so I think the Jets, for me, that's what they should be looking for, big picture, is a right shot defenseman that can play in your top four, improve your top four. But yeah, if you're talking about if certain players are available, look, like I really do think the Jets have enough forward depth to withstand the injury to Kyle Connor. Is it going to affect them? Of course. That's the same thing as, saying, are the Lightning going to be affected if you take Nikita Kucherov out of the lineup?
Mhm.
Or are the Leafs going to be affected if you take Austin Matthews or, William Nylander out of the lineup? Of course, those are your top players. But I don't think, that should necessarily be your top priority. Look, like some of these guys, like, will Konechny make you better? Yeah, he'll make you better. And I'd have no problem if the Jets acquire Konechny, depending on what the return would be. But, we just don't see a lot of trades this time of year. And there is going to be a roster freeze. I think it's on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, coming up.
December 19th, I believe.
Always around the holiday season,
Right.
so that players don't have to worry about.
And you're
getting
not talking
traded.
about, Drew wasn't suggesting the Jets should make a trade in the next 24 hours or 2 days. But
I'll be fine if they make a trade in the next 43
Oh, no,
minutes.
that would be great for us. We'd probably do and if it was a couple hours from now, we'd probably do a pop-up show, right, boys? I mean, there's enough beer here to last us probably a few years.
Yes, we're good.
So,
Well, a few years, come on.
Maybe a week.
A few hours for you, maybe. Yeah. As he throws one back in the
Somebody
middle of the
was
conversation.
asking me to shotgun a beer. I'm not going to do that.
When was the last time you
41,
when
I'm
was the last
41
time
years
you
old and I have
shotgunned
2
a beer?
children. I'm not 31 anymore. So the last time I shotgunned a beer, last night, actually. No, I mean, no, I it's been a while for sure. It's been at least 6 or 7 years.
There you go. That's probably the responsible version of Ezra Ginsburg. The irresponsible version was a lot more fun. Surprised he's alive.
Trust me, Drew,
ending up in
I wish I
fountains.
had that version of me as well, as opposed to, can we watch Peppa Pig again? Like that's basically my life.
No, that's you saying it to the kids though. Is can we watch Peppa Pig again?
We got some IC
We got
fans
some
in
more
the background.
cheering in the background. I see Colby shoveling in some pancakes over there. So of course, come on down, join us at number 2 Donald
look?
Street, Farmery Brewing. There you go. It's a lot of fun here on this Saturday morning, talking about the Jets ahead of tonight's Jets Avalanche
Pat
game.
Kanuga of CBC, awesome guy, and he's picking up some beer.
There you go. Hi, Pat. Good morning.
And Pat had no idea. Yeah, and Pat had no idea we were doing the show here this morning. He's here every Saturday.
He's just got to pick up some beer nice and early. It's good. Look, this is going to be a fun game tonight. I think this is the time of the year. You got a Central Division matchup. You got a home game. It's on a Saturday night. This is the first, I believe, 6:00 start on a Saturday night at home this year. I think all the other afternoon games have been matinees.
Yeah,
if I'm not
Saturday
mistaken,
games, yeah.
Saturday games I'm talking about. So you can feel sort of a buzz anytime guys like McKinnon and McCarr come to town. There's an additional buzz, and of course, again, we talked about it really off the start. 10 days ago, the Jets went into Denver. And they had one of the better performances of the year, and they took it to the Avs. And sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to wait till you were finished, but the key is consistency. The
Sure.
key is showing that people are like, it's the first game of a homestand, coming off a good road trip. How are they going to react? You want to show that you can play the exact same way as you did in LA tonight in Winnipeg.
Right.
You can't have that drop off. And look, Colorado it's kind of a weird situation because Colorado is again one of those teams that's really good at home. And they haven't been great. They've been okay on the road, but they haven't been phenomenal on the road.
Well, the Avalanche have also, I think, only won 3 of their last 7.
Yeah,
something like that, right? So
they've definitely hit a bit of
and they lost to the Jets. They also lost to the Ducks in there. I know that.
Yeah, and look, I mean, so yeah, they're 11-4-0 at home, and they're 7-5-2 on the road. Not bad, but they're just not, like a top. Like that's not the most unbelievable road record. And it's interesting because both teams come up with a plus 17 goal differential. The Avs just score more and they let in more goals. The Jets don't score as much and they don't let in as many goals. So it'll be an interesting thing if the Jets can maintain their structure. Connor Hellebuck, there was an optional skate this morning, so he didn't take the option, which leads folks down at Canada Life right now to believe that he'll be getting the start. No big surprise there.
Yeah, it would be a shock if it's not Connor.
Not a big surprise that Connor Hellebuck. We don't know if there's going to be any other changes. One thing that was notable,
what I was going to say is that Nate Schmidt practiced yesterday on the second power play unit.
Schmidt staying in the lineup.
Right.
There's no question about Schmidt staying in the lineup. The only thing I thought was interesting yesterday, and I did make a bit of a snafu because he wouldn't practice because he was on waivers, but Dominic Toninato wasn't assigned to the Moose, so he could have played last night for the Moose. He wasn't assigned, so maybe there's something that someone's dealing with that they're keeping Dominic Toninato. They wanted him. They had to clear waivers because he'd exceeded the point of being with the organization. But again, like I said, maybe we'll see him down. And there's just a concern that someone's nicked. but we'll see what happens in that situation.
Yeah, so like Dave said, an optional skate. As soon as we get more information from what's happening down at Canada Life Center, we'll bring it to you here this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show as the Jets and the Avalanche go to battle later tonight around 6 o'clock. 6:10 will be puck drop, which means post-game show right around 9 o'clock back here on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, bringing you the latest on the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche, a key Central Division tilt later on tonight. Right now, we are live at number 2 Donald Street Farmery Brewing.
Ooh, Alex Kiss is offering to drop off baking. We never say anything. We never say no to baking.
People are feeding us both.
Well, Spency's been feeding us all morning, and now Alex is offering.
Hold on, what
baking.
Dave? What kind of baking are we talking about here?
I've never seen you turn down anything.
I was
so
going to say,
what does it matter to you?
Ezzy, it's flour. Okay, yes, I'm in.
It's got flour and sugar.
Somebody just brings a big cup of flour.
Ezzy's like,
It'll be anyways. It's very interesting. We're having a ton of fun down here at number 2 Donald Street. So get down here if you want some pancakes and if you want to say hello to us on this Saturday
I'm still
morning.
just hoping that this beer right here doesn't fall on me or Dave right now.
It's a leaning tower of beer right now.
Well, it's always important. You got to have beer right behind you at all times. You know, this Avalanche team, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, they're not the juggernaut that they were when they won the Stanley Cup. This is a team that
Still
is
pretty good, though.
Well, they're pretty good largely on the backs of their superstars. They're top heavy. We know that. So to beat the Avalanche, you know what your game plan is. Now, it's way easier said than done. You cannot easily shut down a Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar when those guys are going at full speed. They're just that dominant. Their goaltending has been iffy this year. The depth in their forward group is iffy. The depth on their back end, I would say.
Well, and we should mention Pavel Francouz is injured. He hasn't played yet this year. I don't think
it doesn't sound like he's coming back anytime soon.
And I don't know how many people could name the Avalanche backup. It's Ivan Prosvasov, and he's actually been not bad. He's played, I think, 9 games, and he's won more games than he's lost, Dave. But I think we all expect Georgiev to be in goal.
And Georgiev has not been very good at all.
No, and that's kind
sub 900 save percentage, over a 3 goals against average.
I think it's a 3.
Okay, well, good. How about close to 3?
Well, it wouldn't be over 3. It would be at 3.
And you go back to the year that they won the cup, right? Like Philip Grubauer started off as the starting goalie, and then of course Darcy Kemper took over when they won the Stanley Cup. But I'm with you, Drew. I mean, look, Georgiev I think is a good NHL goaltender. I just think right now he's not playing at the level they expected him to play at. I'm not saying if he's playing at that level, he's up there with Hellebuck or Sorokin or UC Saros or Vasilevsky or whoever you want to say, are the top goalies in the league. But I think there's no doubt that, the Avalanche right now are not playing their best, right? Like we talked about it. They're 3-3-1, Dave. I think they won 3 of their last 7. I know that. I think they're 5-3-2, something like that in their last 10, right? Like, so not the worst record ever, but the Jets have been playing much better and they've been closing that gap between themselves and the Stars and the Avalanche. So again, we mentioned this earlier, guys. We're not going to say this is like a statement game, or we're not going to say, a measuring stick or any of that crap. I mean, the Jets already beat the Avalanche. The Jets already beat the Kings. Yes, they've lost to the Stars. They've lost to the Golden Knights multiple times.
Yeah.
Both teams.
But it's going to be a close game, right? Like, there's no doubt that when the Jets went into Denver and won that game, they took the lead. They never looked back. Yeah. Nathan McKinnon scored a really nice goal, posterizing Logan Stanley.
He would have posterized
and then he
contributed.
Anybody, and then he also, I forget who scored the goal, but he also had an assist on the second goal that the Avalanche scored. I forgot who got it. But the point is, the Avalanche are very good. They're going to be a tough test. You're obviously going to have to shut down the McKinnon-Rantanen line.
Yeah,
but you're also going to have to worry about Cale Makar, who has the ability to basically, I mean, he can do Nikolai Ehlers type of stuff. When he gets in the offensive zone, you got to be careful, because that guy, even though he's recovering from an injury, I mean, he has the ability, just with his individual skill, to change the course of a game, Dave.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any question about it. And look, this is the kind of test. You're right, Ezzy. It's not
37 points in 27 games is kind of absurd in today's NHL for a defenseman.
No, I mean, it's what he's doing. Yeah. I mean, again, what him and Hughes are doing, it's overshadowing. Even like we talk about how
Quinn Hughes on Vancouver.
Yeah, but we're talking about, like, folks are talking about Josh Morrissey and how good his kind of season has been, following up his phenomenal season last year. Yeah. But it really is overshadowed by what guys like Makar and Hughes are doing.
Those guys are in another stratosphere.
No, I agree. Yeah. But I'm just saying that but Morrissey's having an excellent season.
Right.
And what did he play? 30 minutes against Anaheim the other day? Like, he's been unbelievable. It's just not to get to that level, because you've got guys like Makar and Hughes who are having ridiculous years. So look, it's going to be a fun game, and you're right. It's not necessarily like every one of these games as you can't just play every game that's against the top team. Well, it's a statement game. It's a statement game. No, it's not. It's an important game. It's going to be a good challenge for your test. And again, to me, the biggest statement, if you will, is the fact that you want to see that the team is going to play to their style, not let the Avs come in. Look, the Avs are too good a team to not know that they're going to have some dictating of the pace and the gameplay. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to be the one, especially if you're the home team, to be able to kind of set the tone. And that's what it'll be curious to see how the Jets do, which line they start with, and that sort of thing. So, it should be a lot of fun tonight.
Well, to your point there, Dave, the Jets know how they need to win. They know how the game needs to look for them to be successful. And I think against San Jose in particular,
put Connor Hellebuck in there.
Well, against San Jose, they got away from that. When they played their game against the Sharks, they controlled the play. San Jose was only able to sort of take advantage when became more of a
Jets had a bad start
game.
In that game. The first 10 minutes they were asleep.
They were definitely awful in the first 10 minutes. But for the Jets to succeed, they know what their game needs to look like. They know when they're at their best, how their game looks, and there's no question about it. And they've been pretty good so far this year at making their opponent play to their style. Now against Colorado, if you're going to start, wheeling and dealing against, Makar and McKinnon and Rantanen, you're going to put a lot of pressure on your goaltender. And Connor Hellebuck oftentimes can match that and can handle that, but that's not how the Jets want to be. So they have to be able to, play the right way, just like they did 10 days ago in Denver. That's the right way to play. They know it. It's like, look, mirror this game, how they did against Denver. Now, of course, they didn't have Kyle Connor in their lineup then, so that's obviously going to change things to a fair degree, but it's not like they don't know the recipe for success. Now it's a matter of emulating that again tonight.
Yeah, and that recipe involves just being tenacious when you're defending and forechecking, right? Like the Jets, like what I keep thinking is, like, we said this over the years, like we always would say the Golden Knights, like the way they play, it's like killer bees. Like Dave and I always joke about, being killer bees. And that's the thing with the LA game is after that first period, which the Kings were the better team, I think we'd agree, especially, earlier on the game, even though let's not forget, lucky power play, they got away with a penalty, fluky goal scored by Laferriere. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
You are.
But look, after that, I mean, the Jets were all over the Kings, and they really didn't let the Kings break out of their own zone cleanly. And they became aggressive. That's when the Jets are aggressive and they're playing within their structure and blah, blah, blah. They're a very difficult team to beat.
Yeah, no, I think there's no question about it. And like we said, if you don't win this game, it's not like you're no longer planning the parade, but you're not planning the parade regardless. You just want to show that you can, again, replicate the success you've had against Colorado, against LA, and not fall into a rut. So again, you had a really good post Kyle Connor era start. Let's see how they can continue.
By the way, Dave and producer Tim, it's nice to see Drew doing this symbol.
I forgot
right?
that I was on TV.
That's like back in the radio days.
Yeah.
Tim remembers that. Like it would be we'd take our breaks every 15 or so minutes, and Drew would do his little.
That's the symbol for going to break, and I totally forgot for a second.
Like Drew. I'm like, you keep doing it. I'm like, you could just send me a message in the chat.
I totally forgot that we're actually that there's a camera on me. Whereas back on the day,
you could just pinch my thigh, Drew. That'll
do that. In any event, let's go to break. When we come back, Megan Angley covers the Colorado Avalanche for DNVR. Avalanche. She's going to join us for more on tonight's opponent for the Winnipeg Jets, the Colorado Avalanche. We're live at number 2 Donald Street. We're live at Farmery Brewery. There's pancakes, there's bacon, there's beer. Come join us. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Saturday morning,
sweet beer.
Live on all of our social media platforms and live on location. We are back live, number 2 Donald Street, Farmery Brewing. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning, talking about the Jets and the Colorado Avalanche doing battle later on tonight. To talk about that and to talk about the Jets' opponent, we're pleased to be joined by Megan Angley of DNVR Avalanche. She covers the Avs for that fine site. Megan, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fine and dandy. We're surrounded by beer. We got a guy in the parking lot making pancakes and bacon.
Megan's never been on the show before. She's going to think we're all alcoholics and we do this every Saturday.
So this is a similar vibe to DNVR.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Exactly. But it's amazing how people come out when you tell them there's pancakes, there's bacon, and there's beer. It's the crowds show up in swarms. But obviously, we brought you on, Megan, to talk about the Avs ahead of tonight's contest in downtown Winnipeg. A key Central Division matchup between these two teams who are very close to one another in the standings. And it was only 10 days ago that the Jets went into Denver and knocked off the Avalanche. And since then, I would say the Avalanche have had maybe more noise swirling around them than we're typically used to, and not necessarily good noise. I want to start with the I don't know if it's a battle, but the comments between Mikko Rantanen and Arturi Lehkonen and Lehkonen's dad. I mean, from the on-the-ground situation in Denver, just how bizarre of a situation is that when you got one teammate going after another teammate's dad?
It was a really interesting situation, but it also requires some understanding of Mikko Rantanen. He runs a little hot, but he also loves his teammates, including Arturi Lehkonen. I know that they're very close and remain very close even on the heels of that, because I think the culture in hockey generally is being able to turn the page on things like that pretty quickly. It was just a heat of the moment kind of thing in that postgame that he stood by in the end too. I think he needed to address Arturi Lehkonen's father, Ismo, in some way, because he really took issue with Lehkonen's dad criticizing his off-season training specifically. He said, "You can criticize my on-ice play as much as you want." And I think that's true of who Mikko Rantanen is. But when you start talking about how I take care of myself away from the rink, that's where I start to have some issues. And I think that's a pretty valid perspective. I think the anger that was met with that perhaps was more than anybody was expecting and did catch us off guard. But he also carried on the rest of that post-game interview so normally that you almost would have missed it if you were other media in the room at a different scrum. And so at that next day and the days that have followed, it seems like everyone has turned the page on that. And I don't doubt, because of how close Lehkonen and his father are to Rantanen, that they've buried the hatchet behind the scenes even more so. It was very weird, though, to be boots on the ground when that happened, because he talked to media after because he was really wanting this to be put out there. And I thought that was really interesting from Mikko Rantanen's perspective.
And Megan, we swear that we didn't ask Joe Sakic to make a trade so we could just talk to you about it. But Thomas Tatar was traded yesterday. And, I mean, anybody can look at his stats and see that he only had one goal in 27 games, I believe. But is that trade more so for freeing up the cap space, or, just to get something back? It was a 5th-round pick from the Seattle Kraken. Like, I actually thought that was a pretty good signing, because that was late in free agency, if you want to say that, right? It was in September that the Avalanche signed Tatar for $1.5 million. But I guess for people who don't follow the Avalanche as closely, obviously, as you do, why was that trade made by the Avalanche to trade Tatar for that draft pick?
I think there's a few reasons. The timing of it happening now, even on the heels of him finally scoring his first goal as an Av very recently here, it points to the opportunity. It feels courteous, in my opinion. Like, there was probably an open line of communication between both player and front office, if you ask me. I think going to Seattle is no accident. It's a better stylistic fit with more opportunity for a middle six, top six role down the line. Whereas Arturi Lehkonen is a player that the Avs are expecting back in about 4 to 5 weeks. Is Gabriel Landeskog going to be available in the playoffs? There's a prospect coming over from the KHL later this season, Nikolai Kovalenko, and that's going to be a lot of winger depth in the top 6 specifically, even just with Arturi Lehkonen returning. That the opportunity that remained in Colorado for Tomas Tatar just started to make less and less sense, and the production just wasn't there to match. And so it felt like it was such a savvy move from the front office at the beginning, because like you said, 1 year, 1.5, that's a really easy contract to give a 20-goal scorer from the year before. Obviously, that production didn't follow with him, and I think it just wasn't the right fit in Colorado. And as a courtesy to this player, Tomas Tatar, who I think was a really well-liked personality in the room, there's opportunity in Seattle. And it moves the contract out. It clears out a little bit of that cap space. And so I do think that another move would follow, and I don't think they would have done it now if they didn't have something in the works to happen relatively soon. But it is an interesting situation because they are expecting Arturi Lehkonen back in about a month. Are they looking for something then that is going to be more of a short-term solution in the top 6? And when Arturi Lehkonen returns, they're put in more of a 4th-line role, because that's then asking for a very unique type of player. And I'm curious to see what they do next, but I do think they do something.
Well, Megan, just until they do that, that's something that you think they're going to do. They're going to the Colorado Eagles of the AHL and getting players. So how have those guys stepped up in the roles that they've been needed to, getting this new opportunity with the Avalanche?
There have been a few players that have risen to the occasion. Ben Myers is a forward who's up with the team right now. He was signed out of college as a free agent, and his NHL debut was one of those seasons where he made a few appearances and then wasn't eligible to play in the playoffs, then played in NHL games that next season, and he struggled a little bit. He really worked hard, though, on becoming an NHL centerman. He played center in college, was extremely productive there, but was having trouble getting that game to translate at the National League level. But he's taken a lot of steps forward to become more reliable defensively. That has earned some trust with Jared Bednar. And he scores a goal in his first call-up of this year. And so I think that's why he's going to remain up with the group for the time being. And another winger option that I think they'd be eyeing for Tomas Tatar's replacement in the meantime is Riley Tufte. He came over from the Dallas organization this summer with Freddie Olofsson, and both of these players have been such a good cultural fit for Colorado. They have very positive attitudes, especially Riley Tufte. He understands that he is going up and down between the American League and the National League. He's a huge, long player that likes to get to the front of the net, has a pretty good shot, and has been very productive at the American League level. It's hard to keep him there, but he's been very patient, and I think that he could step up in Tomas Tatar's place.
Megan Angley is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. She covers the Colorado Avalanche for DNVR Avalanche, the Jets and the Avs later tonight in downtown Winnipeg. The Illegal Curve post-game show right around 9 p.m. tonight. Megan, the goaltending for the Avalanche has been a bit of a sore spot, I think it would be safe to say. How does Alexander Georgiev sort of take that next step? It's been an issue really since the cup winning year when Darcy Kemper really took the team on their back. Pavel Francouz is out of the lineup for the foreseeable future. How concerned is the organization with the state of the goaltending as we sit here, 26, 27 games into the season?
I think that Prosvetov stepping up in the way that he has these last few games changed my opinion about the goaltending situation, because before that would be where I felt there were the most vulnerabilities because of the body of work Georgiev produced in his inaugural season with the Avs last year. He really demonstrated to me, and I believe the front office, that he can be a reliable starter. There have been some struggles for Georgiev at the start of this year, and not having Pavel Francouz as an option gave me a lot of concern for a backup, especially looking at a playoff situation where they needed Pavel Francouz to sweep the Western Conference Final. It's very important. And so Prosvetov stepping up the way that he has while Georgiev's sorting through, I think it's a very mental lull for him right now. Everything that he did last year points to an upward swing, in my opinion. And I think that the Avs as a team usually have tough Decembers, and then a lot of that momentum, especially as they start to see the playoff window in sight, it starts to happen for the goaltender too. And so I'm not personally worried about Georgiev, just because of what he was able to do for the Avs last year under so much duress because of injury. It's Prosvetov who I believe is getting the start tonight again. And it's interesting because I think that is the type of thing that would motivate a player like Georgiev, because he does believe that is his starter's net. And to see Prosvetov get those chances to start, I think is good for the Avs front office to see who they have in Prosvetov. He has had a difficult time in Arizona in the opportunities that he had to start with the Coyotes. And I think that he's also looking to have a new start here in Colorado. So I'm more optimistic than I was before, but Georgiev does need to get things right a little bit mentally. He has been struggling.
And Megan, that's some good breaking news, because up until that point, we didn't know Prosvetov was starting. And as you mentioned, so thank you for that. And as you mentioned, he was drafted by Arizona in the 4th round back in 2018. He's got 4 wins for the Avalanche. So I don't know, for those folks who aren't watching the Avalanche all the time, as you mentioned, he's been a bit of a revelation there with Pavel Francouz out of the lineup. And I wanted to ask you about Ryan Johansson, because I remember we were talking about Ryan Johansson on the show when the Avalanche traded for him. And I think you'd agree it was kind of a split jury in terms of, what people thought of that acquisition, because Johansson's been a bit of a polarizing player going back to his days with Nashville and before that Columbus. But how would you kind of assess his first 27, 28 games with the Avalanche? I saw that he's got 9 goals, only 2 assists. So I guess he's going for the Cy Young Award or something. But how would you assess Ryan Johansson as the Avs second line center?
I think the issue I would say there's more to do. There's more to give. The cultural fit, which I say a lot, is related to what the Avs front office seeks in their players because of what the players want in their teammates. And I think he is a great fit in that sense. He is such a nice guy to have in the room, and he's gelled really well with the team from a chemistry perspective. The issue, I think, has been that second line has not figured itself out. The Avs have a pretty reliable group of players to choose between for that top line. Third line is set. It's that second line that has not quite figured out its identity, and it's been a revolving door of players too. Ryan Johansson has sort of been the mainstay there as the second line center. And so I think not having consistency in players that complement what he is, he needs a player who's a worker, a player who is going to retrieve pucks and win battles. And that is where someone like Val Nichushkin, who has been playing up in the lineup, is especially helpful, or Arturi Lehkonen is especially helpful. But not having those players, I think, has hurt the strengths of Ryan Johansson's game, because we're not seeing the strengths of his game, because I don't think speed is the strength of his game, but he is another player that does like to get to the front of the net, and on the power play especially has been a helpful contributor in the bumper spot. And then the other thing that he's brought that has been as advertised is his face-off wins. That has been a struggle for the entirety of the Avs for a while, and it is one of those things that matters situationally no matter how you swing it, and that has certainly improved then the Avs possession just by having Ryan Johansson on that second line. He's a pretty reliable guy to send out there in a lot of different situations. And so that part has been as advertised, but I think there's more to give. And I think that's why Tomas Tatar moving on from him makes sense, because these two players didn't quite complement each other, and they should then target somebody who is better going to complement Johansson.
Megan, after the Jets beat the Avs on a couple Thursdays ago, head coach Jared Bednar said, I'm reading from your website, we got to get more guys going in the same direction. It's costing us. And then they subsequently lost to the Flyers, but then they've picked up wins over the Flames and the Sabres. So has he spoken, 8 days later about that? The idea that, does he feel like the team is now kind of all pulling in that same direction?
I think so. That especially was a wake-up call to the team's stars, and it felt like it was directed at Mikko Rantanen in a few ways, and not in a malicious way. He was giving Mikko Rantanen so much opportunity to get out of the rut that he was in, giving him even more ice time to help him work through it. And so Mikko Rantanen did. He did eventually break through a lot of that lull that was troubling him. Val Nichushkin also started to produce. Nathan MacKinnon has continued to. That was not directed at him. And then on the whole, I know that they're trying to get more contributions from everywhere. The only person I feel like that's not directed at that would say it is Cale Makar. But Cale Makar continues to be such a reliable player for them. But I know that Cale Makar, if you asked him today, would say that he has more to give as well. I think that Jared Bednar is very happy with how the team has responded to the Winnipeg and the Flyers games. And it's now a matter of consistency. And I think he just needs to see players like Mikko Rantanen not just get started, but also continue to stack together very good games.
Megan, you talk about the need to stack together some very good games. You look at the off-season acquisitions, or the guys who are really trying to fill in some of that depth, the depth losses that really happen to every team once they get the great success, the cap being what it is. They can't keep that roster together. They bring in a guy like Jonathan Drouin. They bring in Miles Wood. They bring in Ross Colton. Who needs to contribute more than they currently are for the Avs to feel comfortable with their forward depth?
I always pick a weird answer when I get asked that, but it's because of what players were brought in to do and what their role is specifically. And I think that Jonathan Drouin, coming in on the contract that he did, was very low risk, high reward. And I think he's starting to come into that. So I'm actually really happy with what Jonathan Drouin has been contributing. The Pearson that I look to is Freddie Olofsson on that fourth line. And it is only because that is one of the biggest strengths of a playoff team is depth. And they need a reliable fourth line center. And that has just been a little bit of a tough area for Freddie Olofsson at times, but there are parts of his game that he contributes that are also so important to this team. He's a PK specialist. He's just not been very good in the faceoff dot. And it has then struggled for that line to get good ice some of the time. And that's where I'd be saying he has more to give. Because Wood and Colton, especially together, have not only been as advertised, but they complement each other so well as players that before Tomas Tatar was traded, that would probably have been my answer. But now it's more so Freddie Olofsson.
Megan, wanted to ask you about Sam Malinski, because if my memory serves me correctly, his first career NHL point was that game against Winnipeg, and he's from Minnesota. And there's obviously a lot of Minnesota players on the Jets, not too far away from us here in Manitoba. And obviously injuries, presented an opportunity for Sam Malinski. But what have you thought of his game? And has anything, the way he's played, has that changed maybe I know he's undrafted, which is amazing that he's making his debut at 25 years old, but has that maybe changed what you maybe thought the ceiling was for a prospect like Malinski?
I've been a Sam Malinski believer since they brought him over from Cornell because he was made to be an Avalanche-style defenseman, especially if you look at some of his college games or what he's done at the American League level. When you see him at his best and at his most confident, he does like to walk the blue line in search of the perfect play and lean into the offensive side of his game. He's been working on then getting adjusted to the NHL pace and being reliable defensively in his own end. In that Winnipeg Jets game, he gets his first point, but he also screens his own goaltender. It's tough. It's like there have been some...
I purposely left that out, by the way, Megan.
You know what? I'll say it. I really like Sam Malinski. I think that is evident too in Bednar continuing to give him games because there have been some big mistakes, but the reward has been greater. And I think that's something excited, and there's starting to be fewer and fewer mistakes too. He is a really smart defenseman. I think because he's 25 too, he's a lot more physically mature coming straight from college. He's also very mature. He was the Cornell captain, so he already is very mature as a player and has a lot of pro habits. And I think that is why he's been able to acclimate to the NHL maybe sooner than I've seen other young defensemen acclimate. And I think he has a lot of great teachers in that room to learn from, even just by watching. I think that some of his stick plays defensively remind me of Devon Toews. I think some of his edge work at the blue line would remind you only a tinge of Cale Makar. And I think that's why he's such a stylistic fit for the Avalanche. And they've had pretty great success with working with defensemen at the American League level that I think he's ready to get in more NHL games, and with Sam Girard away from the team, the opportunity is there for him. Even if he needed to continue working at the American League level, I think he is an NHL player. It's just a matter of time.
Megan, last week, Elliot Friedman reported that Gabriel Landeskog, the captain of the Avalanche, who's obviously out with his knee injury, is coming back to Denver to rehab. How big is his return? Obviously not on the ice, but to be around the team. How important will the return of the captain be for the Colorado Avalanche?
I thought you were about to say Denver Nuggets there.
No,
I wasn't sure.
I was going to say into Denver, and then I switched to Colorado Avalanche.
It's huge. I know there's a lot of new personnel that aren't familiar with him as a captain, but it doesn't take long being around Landeskog to learn why he's so valuable to the team. And for the guys that know him, he's invaluable. Jared Bednar describes him as a second coach, and that's why obviously his on-ice contributions are so important. But just being around the team is also incredibly important because he is such a steady presence and he's the kind of guy that you want to play for. And so having him around, not that the Avs need anything to dig deeper to find motivation, but I do think that having him around is a benefit to everybody.
Megan Angley covers the Colorado Avalanche for DNVR Avalanche. She'll have coverage of tonight's Jets Avalanche game post game. Megan, appreciate your time and insight this morning. Thanks so much for joining us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Guys.
Take care, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
So much for joining
us.
us.
Say hi to AJ for us.
I will.
Yeah, we've had him on the show before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks, Megan.
Take care, Megan.
There she goes, Megan Angley joining us this morning. Great first appearance for Megan on the program. Couple first-timers with Ross Levitan and Megan Angley.
You never forget your first time, Drew.
Well, I'd like to.
Do you remember your first time? Hey, we're coming up on how many years of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show?
16.
No, wasn't it?
No, it's fit. What are you talking about? 16.
2009 was
the 15th year anniversary is coming up in early February.
Was it 09? I couldn't remember if it was 08 or 09.
The website debuted in 2007. And the show debuted in 2009. I should know because I've been on for all 15 years.
You haven't missed an episode in 15 years on top of everything there. Anyways, great performance, great appearance by Megan last night. This morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm getting a little ahead of myself.
You need a beer, Drew.
I know.
That's what you need. I've been drinking this beer. I'm almost done it.
Yeah, you
got to switch to beer, man.
Clearly, it's almost 11 a.m. So I think I can. That's the official beer o'clock because we're live here at Farmery Brewing, number 2 Donald Street, their retail location. There's pancakes and bacon at the tailgate in the parking lot. So if you're driving around and you're listening to us, be sure to head down here, grab some delicious beverages, grab something to eat. We got producer Tim doing his great job. Colby Spence, the photographer.
We deserve producer Tim always deserves kudos, but especially today because he's basically doing the show from like his knees. He's sitting on the floor. His knees are going to be shot for 2 hours. We didn't have a proper seat for producer Tim, so we always give him big props, but especially today because he's doing it in a precarious situation.
Exactly. Tim is the hero of the program, as we've all said more and more than once, as we were talking about the Jets and the Avalanche. That game later on tonight, right around 6:00, puck drop in downtown Winnipeg, and then the post-game show about 9:00 back here on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. It'll be a great time later on tonight talking about the Jets and the Avalanche and recapping everything that goes on.
Love that 6:00 start.
You think you're being sarcastic?
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay, yeah, I figured as much. Given that it's not conducive, is what as he's saying.
That's a start time where Naomi just like shakes her head and she's like, "Oh, so I guess I'm doing dinner time again tonight."
Hang on, you cook?
No, that's the whole point. I don't cook,
bro. But you never cook. So why doesn't she just? She doing
she's
dinner
helping-
time?
I mean, I know how to dial a phone and order a pizza. Like,
yeah, but
I know how to put dinner on the table.
But I'm saying, even if there's no Jets game, what contribution are you making? That's the part that I'm confused about.
Just being a warm body.
Okay.
Basically, yeah, just being there to support Naomi. But yeah, I mean, I've told you guys, I definitely prefer the 7:00, 8:00 starts. But the good thing is, with the 6:00 start, game's over early, and then you can head to the nightclub after.
I know you're going to go clubbing tonight. Is it TYC or Scandals?
I'm more of a Palladium guy.
But get Palladium at the Palladium.
Yeah. Is Monty's Bar 1 still open?
No, it became a condo. I think they knocked it down. I'm pretty sure it's gone altogether. We are old, is what we just discovered in the course of that.
Drew, do you want to go to the Charlie tonight with me?
It's now a co-op gas station, so sure, we'll head there a little bit later on. I do need to fill up with some petrol.
We can just drink by a pump. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, you can buy.
I mean, people might worry about our mental health, but
I think they might worry about our mental health based on this conversation.
I was going to say that nothing's changed in 15 years of doing the show.
Exactly right. I'll tell you what, the Moose did not have a good performance last night. For all of the latest on the Manitoba Moose, Manuka has been champing at the bit for this.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minute Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
In here, Drew, or chomping, because
it's champing.
No, I know what it is.
I like that comment
but
from CMAC, by the way. Timmy, I don't think you can see it, but CMAC is saying that we should provide Timmy with a 2-4 of Farmery Illegal Curve beer. And I couldn't agree more.
That's a good
see
idea.
We'll see if we can make a flat available for Timmy.
Yeah.
Or we can just walk out with it. It's fine. The Farmery guys will be cool with that.
You're about to be crushed by them that are over your head. That's how the show ends. The show ends with just the leaning tower of beer just collapsing onto Dave.
We'll see. Well, hopefully not. But anyway, so yeah, just quickly, Dominic Tonnato wasn't reassigned. We'll see if Rick Bowness has anything to say. I don't think his comments, if there's anything come out of his presser yet.
I haven't seen anything.
Not that I've seen.
Yet.
So
seems it was an optional skate this morning.
Yeah, but he still would have spoken around 10:30. So
obviously
nothing of super relevance. Otherwise, would have been tweeted out. Chaz Lucius returned, the Jets 2021 first rounder. He was dealing with a lower body issue. He missed both games last week in Calgary. He returned to the game last night, as did Kyle Capobianco, who was dealing with a hip issue. So he was back in the lineup after missing both games in Calgary. Just an interesting, I mean, it's funny because Milwaukee and Manitoba played each other 12 times in the regular season, 5 times in the playoffs last year. And yet this was the first meeting of the two divisional rivals. So it was, and obviously they're the Nashville Farm Club, have a lot of really good talent on that Milwaukee team, a lot of first rounders. So it's a pretty good team. They've obviously got Askarov in net. And we saw, I said last night jokingly, I see some Mikkel Burden, not because of country of origin, but he likes to play the puck, that guy, and he's behind the net, was doing all sorts of machinations. Anyways, the Moose took like 1,000,001 penalties in that first period, literally had 6, 2 5-on-3s. Colin Delia was the only reason they got out of that first period with it only being down 1-0. They gave up a goal on the 5-on-3 that made them down 1-0. And then in the second, they actually controlled the play, but the Admirals are the one who they outshot him 14-7, got outscored 2-1. So not ideal. They were down 3-0. Wyatt Bongiovanni, he's heating up. Remember, the college free agent signed out of Quinnipiac College. He is up to 7 goals now on the season, but they were down 3-1 going into the third. They had some momentum in the third, couldn't get things really going, and then the Admirals made it 4-1, 5-1, and that was all she wrote. And as you would anticipate, a little bit of fun stuff between those two towards the end of the game, and setting itself up for a good rematch tomorrow afternoon. And of course, should mention tomorrow's game is the teddy bear toss game. So bring I think they'll wrap it for you, but if you can, wrap it in plastic, and then you'll throw it on in during the first intermission, and the
the Bears, I believe, go to the Christmas cheer board. So it's helping to
Great cause.
bring cheer to folks who need it in this holiday season.
Spency's actually going to be throwing me on the ice tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
Dave. So
The human teddy bear.
just looking at the roster of the Milwaukee Admirals.
Yes.
Dennis Gurianov.
I know.
Totally didn't realize he had 20 goals for the Stars 5 years ago.
They got a good team. I mean, a lot of the guys have graduated. And are
Less
playing
than
with-
5 years ago, 2019-20, Dennis Gurianov had 20 goals for the Stars.
And remember, they've got a lot of guys who have graduated up to Nashville already, right? Like there's a number of guys, Cody Glass, Luke Evangelista, there's Yakov Trenin. There's a number of guys who are no longer
Tommy
playing.
Novak.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how many of these guys from the AHL have graduated, and yet they still got a pretty good core group of guys in the AHL. Liam Foudy had a bit of a serious injury in the second. He got hit. It looked like in the eye, and the reason I say that is because the trainer put the towel over his face and was kind of guiding him off the ice. But I was told that someone asked me, and he was apparently doing better, which I was happy to be able to report because it didn't look great, but apparently he was feeling better after the game. So that's good. That's a good sign for him.
Before we wrap up this morning live at Farmery Brewing, number 2 Donald Street, I want to make mention something cool that's going to happen at tonight's Jets game. For the first time ever, it's going to be a Punjabi English version of O Canada.
Awesome.
It's South Asian Heritage Night at tonight's game. So the national anthem, O Canada tonight is going to be sung by the kindergarten to grade 8 choir from Amber Trail School. It's the first.
It's my old neck of the woods.
It is your old neck of the woods. It's the
Naples.
first Punjabi English bilingual program.
Awesome.
So they're going to be singing the national anthem in both English and Punjabi tonight. So that's going to be something to take note of, and that'll be a pretty cool experience for all of those kids and then everyone who's in attendance and watching both live at home and in the downtown arena later on tonight. It's been a great morning down here at Farmery Brewery, number 2 Donald Street. And for all of you joining us live this morning online, also been great. It's been a ton of fun. We're still, the grill is still on. So if you're in the neighborhood, because I haven't had any pancakes yet.
I'm starving.
Okay, so we're gonna go get some pancakes. We're gonna go get some bacon. We're gonna go chat it
Well,
up. with
Dave's
a few
not going to
folks.
get any bacon, but we might have
Well,
bacon.
Dave, you and I will have Dave's share of the bacon.
That's fair.
Is I think what's definitely
Dave M.
going
don't
to
dig
happen.
on pig.
Yeah, no, Dave M is not a big fan. He
I
keeps
don't
that
dine on
kosher.
swine.
Yeah, he keeps that kosher flag flying. We appreciate
It's a
that.
filthy animal.
It's number later on tonight. It is going to be the illegal curve.
It's also a delicious animal, but
Later on tonight, it is going to be the Illegal Curve post-game show after the Jets and the Colorado Avalanche. So be sure to join us back here on our YouTube channel later on, right around 9 o'clock. Going to recap everything that goes on between the Jets and the Colorado Avalanche in this epic Central Division matchup tonight. Want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors who make this show, the post-game show, the website, a possibility. First and foremost, our friends here at Farmery Beer. They've been great hosts for us, making this a reality, doing the show here. So big shout out to Farmery Beer. And of course, Illegal Curve Lager. It's right behind Dave. So be sure to come down.
it's about to crush Dave Manouk here. And I just wanted to say, Drew, before you thank our other sponsors here, anybody who doesn't think that dreams come true. 15 years ago when we started this show, I said, one day, boys, we will have our own beer and we will broadcast surrounded, ensconced by beer. So if anybody tells you dreams don't come true, I am living proof that dreams do come true. It takes 15 years, but you get your own beer. So thank you to the fine folks at Farmery.
There you go. And big thank you, of course, to all of our other sponsors for their support. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Dave Williamson in town tonight. There's, I think, a few tickets left for the late shows. So you can get those, rumorscomedyclub.com. Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway. They're the title sponsor of the postgame show. Our friends at Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, and Rolly's Transfer support all of these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. In case you missed any of the show, the podcast will be available very shortly. And of course, you can always watch the instant replay on our YouTube channel. Big thanks to Megan Angley. Big thanks to Ross Levitan for joining us on the show. Big thanks to all of you for joining us live on location here at Farmery Brewery. We'll see you later on tonight for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Producer Tim doing a great job. Photographer Colby here as well. Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on location and live on all of our social media platforms.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.